Hello and welcome to Six Pack. Today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Deku Had a Goddess Harem Part 1. If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Izuku's first clear thought after passing away from exhaustion from fighting Muscular was, so that's what that feels like. In the end, he won. At least in his mind. Because Kutra would be safe until help arrived despite Muscular's injuries. He was aware of the dangers of overexerting himself, and he paid the price. In a desperate attempt, he was able to summon all of One for All in his entire body, not just his arms. He had more than enough strength as a result to defeat the villain. But at a price. When you combine the full body injuries he received from using One for All at that level with the blood loss he had previously experienced, you can see that the energy expenditure was too much for him. When Izuku realized that all of the pain in his body had vanished, leaving only the phantom pains from before, he said out loud, "I died." With a wave of depression. He remembered what had happened as he glanced down at his hands. In front of him, a gentle, kind voice said, "That's correct, Izuku-kun." Izuku's head shot up to see who spoke as he was startled out of his flashback. A stunning woman stood before him. To say that she was beautiful would be an understatement, she had an almost divine appearance. "And since I'm dead, that might be literal," Izuku pondered before gathering his thoughts. Trying not to sound desperate, he said, "I have a lot of questions but one is the most important right now. Did everyone survive the attack?" The woman gave him a kind smile before responding. She was careful not to mention that his friend had been abducted and that there was nothing he could do to change it. She said, "Yes, thanks to your braver sacrifice everyone managed to live through the event, but young Kutra was struck with grief over your death. Everything had mostly gone well, and she didn't want to cause him any panic." Izuku exhaled a sigh of relief and said, "Thank goodness, I'm just happy to know that what I did wasn't for nothing. I'm sure you must have many questions but please allow me to answer a few of them. My name is Eris. I am the goddess of luck and fortune. One of my duties is to watch over the souls of the recently deceased youth." Therefore she was an actual goddess. Izuku, dead and all, could definitely afford that. Eris said jokingly, "Pleased to meet someone like this young hero. About 3 years ago I had been given dominion over your world, specifically over the young souls who died truly heroic deaths after living lives of selflessness and virtue. As a matter of fact you were the first soul to make it here, congratulations." Since he was the only person in his world who qualified to come here, Izuku was genuinely moved. It made him feel a lot more confident and made him cry a little. "Thank you. I don't know if I deserve this. There are plenty of heroes that die every year. What about them, shouldn't they be here too?" Izuku was perplexed. "They were heroes, yes, at least by your world's definition. They enforced the law and saved lives, however not many did so for truly selfless reasons. They earned their place in heaven, however only you have earned the chance that I'll be giving you today." Eris clarified, now with Izuku's full focus. A goddess might want to give him what? Normally when a person dies they have two options: they can go to whichever afterlife they qualify for, in your case heaven. Or they can return to live another life in the human world, without any of their memories, Eris clarified. Izuku reflected wistfully on the unpleasant moments he shared with his friend, Bully, and thought, so Kachan's swan dive joke had some merit after all. He would truly miss his old friend despite everything that had transpired between them. You, however, are being given a third option. You see, there exists another world out there, very similar to a magical fantasy world that would appear in a video game from your own world. It is currently being attacked by a demon king. His mighty army has destroyed so much that many of the souls from there have refused to reincarnate, which has caused a population decrease. Eris summarized the scenario prior to explaining what it meant to him. Eris explained the situation, and Izuku did his best to listen. The gods have decided to send humans who have died in other worlds to fight off the demon king's army as heroes in order to circumvent this and hopefully eliminate the threat at the same time. This world seemed to need assistance thus far. He would act without hesitation if he believed that this conversation was headed in the right direction. Eris continued, but was cut off, "Which is why you are here. We ask of you to help this world in its time of need." "I accept," Izuku exclaimed abruptly, his eyes full of conviction. Eris was taken aback by the prompt response and gave him a look that suggested she was doubting his choice, but he went on. "If I don't help those in need, then what kind of hero would I be? I may be dead but my goal hasn't changed. I will be a hero. And if you'll let me, sending me to this new world will allow me to be just that," Izuku said with no apprehension. Eris looked at Izuku with a renewed respect for his heroic demeanor and remarked, I knew you were heroic, being sent here was proof. But, to hear such conviction in your words, you truly are worthy of receiving 2 gifts. Izuku questioned, unaware of the specifics of reincarnation. Gifts? What are you talking about, Aris-sama? Ah, that's my mistake. You see, when a human is reincarnated they receive a gift from the gods in order to help them fight off the Demon King. You however will be given 2 as a reward for living a life worthy of a hero. It can be anything, a powerful item, a boon that surpassed all others, even a fictional power that you've seen before. Aris clarified, and Izuku became increasingly excited about the idea after hearing that. Izuku exclaimed, That's incredible, any power at all. Aris simply nodded, grinning at his zeal. Izuku was frantically trying to come up with 2 abilities that would be extremely useful to him. But first he had some things to make sure of. Will I be able to speak the same language as the local people? It would be troublesome if he couldn't, particularly if there wasn't any background information available when he arrived. Fortunately, Aris told him, of course, you will receive knowledge on this world's language directly, along with that you will receive some starting gear to help you start off your journey, she helpfully clarified. She handed him the book, and he thanked her before starting to look through it. Anyway, if it's any help you can check out the power catalog over there, even if there isn't anything in there that you like, you might still get some ideas from it. He had a good idea after noticing a power known as alchemy, but he needed to double-check something first. Aris gave him a startled look as he said, Thank you, I've decided on what I would like to have as my 2 gifts. Most people would take much longer to make a decision. For the first, I want to ask if it's possible to ask for a modified version of an existing skill. He responded. Yes, that's possible. Most just take copies of other powers but they can modify them to best suit their needs, she reiterated. In order to determine the type of system he would be working with, he asked, Okay then, before I explain I just need to ask one more question. Does the magic of this world still follow the basic laws of physics, even if it's just the energy conservation element? Without knowing where he was going, Aris clarified, yes, magic mostly works on the laws of equivalent exchange. For example, if you were to say, create an explosion to destroy a large boulder, you would need to expend an equal amount of energy in mana to do so. Aris simply stared in disbelief at how straightforward yet destructive such a power would be. Okay, then the skill I want is the ability to transmute anything that I touch. For example, if I touched a stone, I could turn it into another material, or I could convert all of the matter in that stone into energy with as close to 100% efficiency as possible. Most people didn't think that their gifts would also require power to use, so she tried to warn him, saying, I should probably warn you, an ability like that will be incredibly difficult to use, the mana costs alone would be massive. He gave Aris another amazed look as he explained his reasoning. I thought as much, which is why I wanted the process to work both ways. For example, I could take any object and then convert it into pure mana, circumventing the need to use my own reserves, or giving me the ability to instantly regenerate any mana that I use. This boy casually solved the problem of a mortal's limited mana supply, and this was only his very first present. Aris complimented him and asked for his second idea, saying, That's very clever of you, Izuku-kun. You're really smart, you know. Anyway, what about the second gift? Although I think your first is already more than enough. He blushed and thanked her, saying, Thank you for the praise, Aris-sama. It means a lot coming from a goddess. He clarified that he primarily wanted reference material to aid in his transmutation skill, but he wouldn't deny that having access to his world's entertainment would also be very helpful. Anyway, my second request is a bit simpler. I just want to be able to access the internet from my homeworld. I won't ask for anything unreasonable like being able to talk to people from there, but having an item, preferably an unbreakable, unstealable one that could access all that information would be a great help, he explained. Aris thought admiringly, and he does it again, another simple item in theory but completely invaluable to him with his new abilities. As she made the magic circle that would drive him away, she remarked, Of course, both gifts are well within our power to grant. I'm sure that you'll be a great hero, Izuku-kun. A voice from the emptiness said, Not so fast, Aris-chan. Just as abruptly as she was heard, an angelic woman with short blonde hair and green eyes materialized in front of them. Her most remarkable feature was the angel wings on her back. Aris asked bewilderedly, Tenshi-chan, how may I help you? I was in the middle of sending Izuku-kun here to his new life. Angels rarely visited goddesses, especially when they were working. She made Aris pale when she said, Sorry to say this, but the elder gods caught wind of your little trips to the human world. As punishment they decided that you would be sent to the human world and that you will not be allowed back until the Demon King was taken care of. Sorry about this, I'm just following orders. The angel apologized. Wait, so I'm being sent to the human world for as long as I want as a punishment for entering it? Perplexed, Aris asked herself. In an attempt to give the impression that she saw it as a punishment, she chose to remain silent and simply nodded and scowled. Thinking of a certain senpai she knew, Aris reflected sorrowfully, there are moments when I doubt the wisdom of my fellow gods. Izuku and Aris were taken into the air and sent to their next location because Izuku was too stunned to react in time. He made a self-promise to help Aris get back to her house as soon as possible and to apologize to her for not standing up for her. And he would give it his best shot with his new gifts, even if he couldn't make it. Just outside of Axel is an open field. With a start, Izuku opened his eyes and began to assess his surroundings. He saw a walled-off city a few kilometers away as his first sight. He recalled what had happened and realized where he was. Additionally, he saw that he was wearing his UA uniform instead of the ruined, casual attire he wore when he battled Muscular, and that he was carrying the bag he typically used for his classes there. These must have been part of my starting gear from the gods. Hold on. Gods. Aris-sama. He exclaimed in panic as he attempted to find her but discovered that she was still asleep and lying directly beside him. He yelled, "Hey, Aris-sama. Wake up, please wake up," in an attempt to rouse her. She opened her eyes a few seconds later and realized what had happened. "I'm so sorry, I should have defended you back there. I'm not sure how that would have changed things, but I feel ashamed for just letting someone as nice as you be punished without even a complaint." He immediately offered an apology. As she stood up, Aris simply grinned at him. His selflessness was charming, but he was far too harsh on himself. "It's okay, Izuku-kun. In all honesty, this is hardly a punishment. I tend to come down here for fun on occasion and this just gives me an excuse to do it permanently," she said in an attempt to calm him down. "Oh okay, but still, I'm ashamed for not stepping in. It's the principle of the matter. You helped me so much and I did nothing to repay you. If you really want to stay in this world, then let me help you while you're here. It would be the least I could do," he stated with resolve. Aris merely gave him a giggle. "It should be me who's helping you, my little hero. But if that's how you feel, then let's be partners instead. I might want to stay here, but I still have work to do in Purgatory and I'm sure you still want to stop the Demon King. So our goals align. I'll be in your care," she said with her trademark wink. By the end of that, Izuku was flushed, but he simply nodded in agreement with her. The goddess nodded in agreement as he said, "So I guess we should head out. You said this place was like a fantasy world, so I assumed there is an adventurer's guild or something, right?" "Right on the first try. Normally I would go there in my human form. Sadly I was brought here looking like I usually do and I can't turn back, so I doubt anyone will recognize me. Luckily I have a friend that might be able to help us, so we should go see her before we do anything else." She explained the strategy to him. "Sure, you know this place better than me, so lead the way, Aris-sama." Before leaving a bewildered Izuku who was trying to keep up, she said, "Okay, but please don't call me by that name. I'm a goddess, remember, and if people figured out who I was, it could end up bad. Oh, and before we go I should warn you that my friend is a little eccentric." Izuku remarked, "Wow, I know you're a goddess and everything, but I didn't expect your friend to be a rich noble or something." As the two traveled to a huge mansion located in the middle of a sizable plot of land in the city's northeast. "When I came to this world before, I lived as an adventurer. One of my closest friends was a noblewoman who decided to become an adventurer as well. Her name is Dustinus Ford Lalatina, but she prefers to be called Darkness. She also happens to be one of my loyal followers, so it would be for the best if she was made aware of our situation." Aris clarified her connection to the wealthy girl. "I became more and more convinced that she was a goddess worth following, or, as she put it, a partner worth working with, the more she spoke. That makes sense. A great person like you would spend their free time helping others as an adventurer," she said. It was a setback, but not a very serious one because her mortal body wasn't that high level anyhow. "Well, aren't you a flatterer? Anyway, the body that I used to adventure isn't too different from my current form, so she should be able to recognize me. After that, we'll need to speak to her in private. Chances are that my status as Chris the Thief has been revoked, so I'll have to start over from square one as an adventurer with you." As we got closer to the mansion, she explained the plan, knocked on the door, and we waited for a few seconds before it opened. "By the way, you should call me Chris while in public. Using my real name could cause some problems." As he opened the door fully to let us in, a butler's elegant voice said, "Ah, Chris-san, you look so different. It has been a while since you visited, and I see you brought another of your companions. My lady is currently in the courtyard. I'm sure she would love to see you." As they passed, Izuku bowed to him, and the green hero nodded respectfully back. Izuku saw a woman who was a little taller than him as we made our way to the courtyard. She wore medium armor covering her sides, chest, and limbs, and she was blonde. She was also trying her hand at swordplay, but it was a complete failure. She attempted to use vertical swings to strike a log directly in front of her, but she was unsuccessful. Izuku decided to intervene and offer some guidance since he could take it no more. He was aware of how discouraging it could be to make so many attempts and then fail. In order to get her attention, he said calmly, "Excuse me, but you should try a horizontal swing. Your arms keep shaking as the blade goes down, which ruins your aim, but if you hit it from the sides you should be able to land it." The fact that someone saw her miss so badly made her flush, but she complied with the stranger's request. She was surprised to find that, despite her hands jumping up at the last second, she was able to hit the target this time. She only had a chipped top piece of wood, but judging by her expression, it was a victory she never would have imagined. She thanked Izuku and then turned to Aris, who appeared somewhat sheepish. Thank you, mister. I actually hit it. Oh, Chris-chan, I didn't recognize you at first. What happened? You look so different like that, she said. She gestured to the green hero, who bowed slightly to her and introduced himself, and said, "It's a long story, Darkness-chan, one that I would like to tell you in private. But before that, allow me to introduce my new adventuring partner. His name is Midoriya Izuku." In an attempt to impress the noble lady, he said courteously as she said, "My name is Izuku. It's a pleasure to meet you, Darkness-sama." As if it were a miracle, she responded, "Oh, there's no need to bow like that, I'm an adventurer too, just like you. I would rather not be treated differently just because of my status. Plus you helped me hit the target, I couldn't have you lower yourself after doing so much." Izuku simply nodded and made an effort to avoid bringing up the subject. She was tall, wealthy, and attractive, but she was also humble about her position, which made him think of Yaoyorozu. "Well, now that you're both introduced to each other, we should get down to business. Darkness-chan, would it be okay to use your room for this? We need a private space to talk." Aris was hoping for a yes. Her room? We just met, so isn't that a bit premature? It would be a major invasion of privacy. They needed privacy, Izuku thought, but it was still a bit much. "Deku, you need to calm down. This is not the time to relapse." Darkness blushed and said, "Of course, I would be happy to help, at once. I suppose she's also the altruistic kind who would lend a helping hand to those in need, even if it meant looking foolish. I'm very fortunate to have met so many wonderful people so quickly." Izuku thought to himself, not realizing how mistaken he was. "It's much more. As I surveyed her room, Izuku thought, she is more modest about her wealth than I had anticipated. Its color scheme consisted of white and yellow with occasional pops of pink. It featured a closet on the far side, a few desks, and a big bed. The room was spacious but not garish." Before turning to face me, she stammered and blushed uncontrollably. "So what was it that you needed to tell me, Chris-chan? It must be pretty important if you wanted so much privacy." Her voice trailed off as she stutteringly said, "Wait, is this your way of telling me that you and Izuku-san are dating? It would explain why you introduced him to me all of a sudden, and why he's privy to what you want to say. But why would you tell me?" She blushed, practically emitting steam from her ears. Izuku began to panic before he froze, realizing his error. "And no, you got it all wrong, we're not going out or anything. And not that I wouldn't want to. Aris-sama is really beautiful after a." Aris laughed and shook her head, saying, "Smooth Izuku-kun, real smooth." Darkness, meanwhile, was misinterpreting his words. She questioned angrily, "Why did Izuku-san just call you Aris-sama? Is this some kind of master-slave play? I didn't think you had it in you, Chris-chan." Wait, what? I mistook her for a naive, wealthy girl. How was she aware of S&M? And more importantly, how should I react to that? Izuku became even more alarmed, this time inwardly. Expectant but still irritated by her friend's antics, Aris was simply pinching the bridge of her nose. Pulling a necklace out of her clothing, she said, "Darkness-chan, just calm down, please. The truth is that." The necklace was a religious symbol, but it had been altered and blessed by her herself. It would be easy for any sincere follower to spot right away. She continued to explain the situation to Darkness, including how they both ended up in this world, but Izuku wished she hadn't gone into such detail about how he died. "I really am Aris, I'm sorry for keeping this from you for so long, but I couldn't tell you about it until recently. You see," she said. Being admired so highly by a goddess was a little awkward. Not knowing the rules, Darkness said, "That's quite a tale. I doubt that you would come up with something so elaborate just to trick me. But, why are you telling me this? Couldn't you just go back to being Chris-chan without any problems?" I may be the same person, but my body has been changed. My adventurer card was connected to Chris. If I tried to use the same one now it wouldn't work, so I have to restart from level 1. The reason I came to ask for your help is that I need an alibi to give to the people to explain how similar I look to Chris and to explain why Izuku-kun is here all of a sudden. She clarified the significance of Darkness's involvement. The idea was straightforward enough and would gain us a respectable reputation with the other citizens from familiarity. Oh, I get it now. Darkness-san would add credibility to our claims since she knew Chris very well. As for our cover story, it would be easy to claim that you were Chris' sister from how similar you both look, while I could just be an old friend that you discovered and decided to help. This was the idea. Aris complimented and recommended. Exactly. Anyway, we should head towards the Adventurers Guild ASAP. The faster we get there the faster we can get you set up. Oh, and as for my name, please call me Arisville. It will be easy to remember, and won't attract as much attention as Aris, she continued. The three continued on in the direction of the Adventurers Guild. In order to find out what he had to work with, Izuku looked through the bag he brought into the world on the way there. His usual school supplies were inside. He had 3 pencils, 3 red, black, and blue pens, a set of high-quality scissors, several blank notebooks, his hero notebooks, a compass, a box of markers, and, lastly, a high-quality clay eraser. Of course, he also had an All Might action figure because, well, this is Deku. During summer camp, this was all he had, though he would have had much more. Deku, you fucking nerd, as King Explosion murders a mortal quote. In addition to his standard supplies, there was an item in the laptop pocket that he had never used before. The UA logo was displayed on a rather large tablet, but it was now incredibly light, nearly weightless. As he carried on with his inventory, Izuku thought to himself, this must be the gift that I asked for at the end. I should test it out later, but for now, I need to focus on what I have. Next he examined the side pockets. 5 coins with the number 1000 etched on them and a carving of Aris winking were discovered in the bag after hearing a clinking sound. Beginning money? Nice. After finishing that, he turned back to the road and saw a big building in front of them. As Darkness opened the door, he thought, that must be it. What was inside caught him off guard. There were waitresses wandering around what appeared to be an old-fashioned bar. He could only imagine that there were dozens of adventurers drinking, fighting, and generally having a good time. He was never very good in social situations like this, so it was all a bit much for him. Without a second's hesitation, the others approached the sexy blonde woman behind the counter. Luna asked if she could assist them, to which Darkness replied. With the dignity of a noble, Luna grinned broadly and greeted us to the guild. We're here to get these 2 registered with the guild. My friend here is named Arisville. She is a sister to Chris Chan and would like to register. The young gentleman here is named Izuku. He is a friend to the 2 sisters and an acquaintance of mine. He would also like to register. Izuku nodded and gave her one of the coins in my bag, saying, of course, we're always happy to have new members join our cause. Do you have the money for the registration fee? It will be 1000 Aris, 500 for each of you. Arisville apologetically whispered to Izuku-kun, thanks for covering the cost. Normally I would do it, but I left all my money on my other body. Causing the others to laugh at how absurd it sounded. As Luna returned, I reassured her, it's no problem at all. I owe you so much already, it's the least I could do. And guided her to the crystal that was meant to display our stats and register us into the guild. She asked us to hold our hands over the crystal after going over the fundamentals of being an adventurer. Ladies first, Arisville-san, Izuku, grinning at her, said. Observing what he did, Luna remarked, it's nice to see that chivalry isn't quite dead yet. The green hero blushed slightly and claimed that it was simply polite behavior. A flash of light emerged as Arisville touched the crystal, revealing a newly created adventurer's card. Luna reached for it and was shocked by the outcome. At that moment, the guild paused and turned to face us. Luna exclaimed excitedly, incredible. Every stat is exceptionally high. And luck is maxed out. This is the highest stat total I've ever seen in a beginner. She went on to excite the other residents by saying, with stats like these, you can choose any class you like, including the advanced classes. Upon examining it myself, I discovered that the card contained a total of 6 statistics. Power. 65 Vitality, 50-40 is the intelligence score. Knowledge. 30-50 Dexterity, Good Fortune, 999. Arisville replied, regaining her original class, I would like to choose the Thief class. It may not be an advanced class, but it suits my style quite nicely. Luna pointed to the crystal and said, just like your sister then. Very well. Now Izuku-san, please step up and do the same. Izuku was about to do so when he heard a sound behind him. It was followed by some laughter. Don't get upstaged by your lady friend now. I suppose it will be difficult to live up to the stats of a goddess. I wonder. He thought that it might affect his stats, so he activated full cowling at 5% before touching the orb. He attracted a lot of attention with the light display his body produced, and as the card was generated, the audience erupted in several audible gasps. Startled by the young man's actions, Luna reluctantly took his card and examined it. Impossible, she exclaimed, dropping the card in a daze at what she had witnessed. A number of people were watching over his shoulder as Izuku went to catch it before it could fall to the ground and took a look for himself. The card said. Power. 205 Vitality. 250 is the intelligence score. Knowledge. 2300 Dexterity. Good fortune. 800. Everyone who saw Izuku's stat card said things like, no fucking way. His stats are almost all in the triple digits, and what kind of monster is he? I suppose it did work in the end, but why am I so intelligent? And I suppose that all of my previous careless actions have hurt my wisdom stat. My luck is about right. Before glancing at Arisville in darkness, the latter of whom was wide-eyed and slack-jawed, Izuku thought, I might just be legitimately blessed by the goddess of fortune herself. I've been ridiculously lucky ever since meeting All Might. She, too, had stars in her eyes and was flushed for some reason. He felt uneasy about it. Like before Izuku-sama, you are qualified for most of the classes available. However, cleric classes like Archpriest require a higher wisdom score. Your stats surpass what I've seen from even level 40+ adventurers. You are even stronger than Kiyoya-sama. Luna said, still a little shocked, as if she had recovered from her stunned state and turned to face the strong young man. The honorific Sama, however, made Izuku blush lightly. He attempted to soothe her by saying, please, there's no need to call me Izuku-sama, San is more than enough, and just Izuku works too. Which, for some reason, only increased her excitement. She blushed for some reason and said, so modest, maybe you'll be the on-cough. Now Izuku-kun, have you decided what class you would like to be? Before she coughed, what was she going to say? Izuku shrugged and made the decision to accept it after carefully considering his options. I prefer to fight with my fists rather than a weapon, and one for all already enhances my physical prowess well beyond what is typical. Fighter classes are out. I was never one for subtlety, much less with a mentor like All Might, so I just don't fit in with the rogue classes. My level of wisdom is too low, and cleric classes are also out. Regretfully, I wouldn't have objected to becoming an Eris priest. The magic classes are what I have left. I'll choose Archwizard since he seems to be the most powerful of them and would be extremely helpful for my gifts. I choose the Archwizard class, huh? Izuku said, looking up with conviction after making his choice, only to discover that everyone was staring at me strangely. Arisville was trying to tell him that he had been muttering the entire time by making a blabbing motion with her hand. Izuku apologized with a sheepish expression, saying, sorry about that, I tend to mutter a lot when I'm in deep thought. He really needed to break that habit soon. After saying, that's okay Izuku-kun, let me just make everything official, and then you three can get to questing. Be right back, she hurried off to complete what they could only assume was guild paperwork. After asking the young hero a series of questions in quick succession, Darkness approached and timidly asked if we could spar. Izuku-san, what was that? How are you so strong? And most importantly, can we spar later? That's correct, this world doesn't have any peculiarities. Izuku recalled Arisville's explanation to him during our journey to Darkness Mansion. She nodded in understanding as he explained, that was my quirk, in my world over 80% of the population has some type of unique power that they can use. My quirk, one for all, lets me augment my physical characteristics. And yes, we can spar later, I don't mind, but I should probably complete some quests first. Right now I only have 4,000 Eris left and I doubt that's enough to afford food and a place to sleep tonight. He clarified with a second, more enthusiastic nod. A few minutes later, we received the all clear and embarked on our first quest. The giant toad elimination quest was our choice. For a reward of 100,000 Eris, plus an additional 5,000 for each toad killed, we had to kill 5 giant toads. Izuku first saw a real fantasy beast that couldn't exist in his world when we arrived at the field where they roamed. In the absence of a quirk, anyway. Izuku, who sadly lacked magic at the moment and had a meager skill point budget at launch, said, so these are the giant toads. You guys said it was resistant to blunt force, so I guess the best way to go about this is to use a blade or magic. He couldn't acquire any of the valuable magic skills because they all cost at least 8 points each, and he didn't want to waste points on the less powerful spells. Of course, that didn't mean he couldn't fight. Izuku made a crude steel spear for himself by touching the ground and using his transmutation power. It was simple in every way, a tool designed for the job, but because the steel was so pure, it would appear to a blacksmith to be a very high-quality piece. Darkness, who for some reason was also removing her armor, questioned, "Is this another quirk, Izuku-kun? Or is it magic? Did the frogs possess anti-armor properties of some sort?" Izuku explained his power, receiving a tentative nod of understanding from the resident crusader. "It's one of the gifts given to me by Arisfiel-chan. It allows me to change any object into anything else that I want so long as I'm in contact, and I know how the materials work to a moderate degree. The sensation of mana leaving my body to power the transmutation was really unreal, and it really took a toll on me. As if my blood were being drawn or something." Before choosing a course of action, he considered, "After this, I should test my mana recovery skill. I'll handle all of them directly. Arisfiel-chan, please help by sneaking up on them and prepare to take the kill once they get weak enough and you have a safe opening." "Darkness-san. I don't really know what you should do. If you want you can do the same as Arisfiel-chan and take a few kills. I want to keep the express distribution between us fair after all." Izuku went over his strategy with the group. Arisfiel smiled and palmed her face as Darkness turned to face him with a hint of disappointment. "Selfless as ever, Izuku-kun. I appreciate it, but you don't have to take on all of them yourself. Even if we don't get the kill on each one, we still get a sizable express reward from just providing support and defending you. Plus Darkness-chan would get bored if she just stuck back and stole kills all the time," she stated, which clarified why Darkness appeared disappointed. After Izuku finally agreed, the group started working. Izuku hurried over to one of the toads and thrust his spear forward, activating full cowling. He was shocked to find that it passed through with hardly any opposition. It sliced through butter like a hot knife. He further reduced his percentage and leapt back to his starting position, saying, "I might need to lower my power a bit or I'll overextend again." He completed all of this in roughly 5 seconds. Darkness, amazed by my power show, cried out, "Izuku-kun, that was amazing. You were so fast. And you were able to take down that toad in a single hit." For some reason, she was breathing heavily, and her face was completely flushed. Izuku thought to himself, "I didn't think I was that impressive," as he watched Arisfiel ambush another toad, slyly hurling a knife he had made for her at it and nailing it right in the skull. The toad fell almost immediately without even making a death rattle. Izuku gave her a compliment, saying, "Good job, Arisfiel-chan, that was an impressive display of stealth, and good accuracy too." With admiration, Darkness was joining in as well, charging with a sword high at another toad. Unfortunately, the toad was quick enough this time to seize her mid-charge and ingest her upper body. As the toad raised its head and attempted to swallow, there was utter silence in the field. Izuku declared, "I've seen enough." He then hurled his spear at the frog's center, instantly killing it. The spear pierced the heart directly and struck the opposite side hard enough to leave a tiny crater. Panting, blushing wildly, and covered in slime, Darkness began to crawl out of its mouth. Izuku asked worriedly, "Are you okay, Darkness-san?" and received a hearty, "Never better," and a thumbs up. In reply, "I believe I now understand what Arisfiel meant by eccentric. She is a masochist to the core." He blushed violently as he thought. She shakes her head when he suggests, "If you say so, Darkness-san. Would you like to stop for now and maybe take a shower? You know, to get the slime off." "No, I'm perfectly fine, although I don't think I can grip my sword anymore." "It matters not. I'll gladly be the meat shield if it means helping you, Izuku-kun," she replied with excessive joy. Deku, don't kink shame. Remembering some of his more eccentric classmates, he thought, this is just a small quirk. She's still a good person at heart. Some of them straddled the boundary between sane and not so sane, but none of them were masochists. To avoid passing judgment. "Okay then, we should hurry and kill 2 more to finish up then. I'll try to make it quick." As Izuku approached the spear, he saw that the tip was broken. Rather than repairing it, he had an idea. He shaped the spear into a round steel ball and then filled the inside of the sphere with a mixture of 10% sulfur, 15% charcoal, and 75% potassium nitrate. Most frequently referred to as black powder. After that, he sealed the sphere and added a wick. He made some flint from some rocks he picked up from the ground, lit the wick, and then used a quirk-powered throw to throw it at 2 toads about 30 meters away. Shrapnel flew across the field as the explosive exploded. The supersonic projectiles destroyed both toads, causing them to perish in a matter of seconds. As soon as Izuku realized how annoying they would be to cook later, he thought, hopefully they won't complain if they find a bit of metal in those toads while they search the bodies. Oh no. Even more draining is creating mixtures. It seems like I've been using full cowling for 5 minutes at a time. He grabbed a notebook and thought, any further combat after this would be bad, but thankfully my mana supply seems to be pretty high. Remember to test mana transference as soon as possible. Arisviel and Darkness, meanwhile, were grinning as they gazed at the unexpected young hero. One that is proud, and one that is perverted. Their first quest as a newly formed party was successful. Success in the Toad Kill quest. Aris x 125,000. Following their battle with the giant toads, the makeshift party decided to take a bath at the nearby bathhouse to clean up before looking for a place to stay for a few days. Aris and Izuku eventually located an inn that would rent them a room with 2 beds for 50,000 Aris per week. They paid for their 2-week stay in advance. Aris and Izuku were left with 25,000 Aris apiece. They would have limited funds for food, but they could get by. Izuku responded negatively to Darkness's request that they stay with her for a few days until they had more stable finances. You've already helped us more than enough, I couldn't ask for any more. In fact, I swear to you that I'll pay you back for everything tenfold. He made a little too many promises. Unfortunately, the poor hero in training received more attention than he could handle at once because he made his declaration in the middle of a busy street. Unthinking, he went alone to the guild to get away from the growing number of people watching him. Oh no, I abandoned them. Izuku discovered too late that he had already turned on his full cowling and was halfway to the guild. He walked slowly toward the guild building, crouching just outside the main entrance, and said to himself, oh well, I'm sure they'll be fine. Maybe I can do a solo quest to earn a bit more money and get us a safety net just in case. Unfortunately, the speed at which he was moving produced a loud boom behind him. Oh, that's something. I knew I was quick, but not that quick. Other adventurers and bystanders around Izuku appeared perplexed and somewhat shocked by the green rookie's sudden appearance, followed immediately by a loud explosion, while he was processing the fact that he had just broken the sound barrier. Izuku rubbed the back of his head sheepishly as he realized this. He apologized, receiving still perplexed nods. Sorry about that. I moved faster than I thought, he said. In this world, Izuku should have assumed that the typical person would not understand what a sonic boom was. Abruptly, one of the guild building's doors opened, and a tall, blond man roughly Darkness's size emerged. At his hip was a greatsword with an axe-like guard and a golden handle. The blade itself has a long cutout in the middle of the bottom that gives the impression that 2 swords were forged together. Before he noticed me, he said in a worried tone, what was that noise? Was there an attack? And who are you? He pointed at Izuku, being a little impolite. Izuku nevertheless introduced himself, being the reserved but courteous individual that he was. My name is Izuku Midoriya, and yeah, I caused the loud noise. Sorry about that, I was moving too fast and caused a sonic boom on accident. He attempted to clarify. In an attempt to validate a suspicion of his, he adds, also it's common courtesy to give your own name before asking for someone else's. That weapon of his is radiating strong magic, and he looks way too high level to still be in the starting city. Is he also a reincarnate? Izuku thought. Fortunately, the Archmage class gave me a passive ability to detect magic when it's nearby. It's not very accurate, but it was difficult to miss given the amount of power emanating from that blade. My name Kiyoya Mitsurugi. From your name I can assume that you've also been reincarnated into this world, the fool said loudly. What on earth is he thinking? That was meant to be a secret, wasn't it? Fortunately, no one else heard, and they were still a little taken aback by the confrontation between the 2 strongest adventurers in the town. Izuku ran up to him and whispered, a little panicked. He shook his head, looking surprised. Don't say it so loud, weren't you told that we had to keep that secret? He said. I just stared in confusion before he answered, no, I wasn't told that. Aqua-sama just gave me the basic gist of the situation, and my gift the cursed sword Graham. Then I was sent here. I don't believe that she would forget something so important. Izuku questioned, who's Aqua? Was it another goddess? At our young hero's question, the blonde swordsman appeared perplexed, but then he felt a familiar energy. A hand was placed on Izuku's shoulder, causing him to jump before turning around. Arisviel stood behind him, breathing heavily. Still gasping for air, she explained, Aqua is my senpai Huff. She's the second Huff goddess that is meant to send people to this Huff world. Please don't run like that again, Izuku-kun. I know that it was a little embarrassing, but that reaction was a bit much. And who is this? Inquired Mitsurugi. He misunderstood the situation and said, her aura reminds me a little of Aqua-sama's. She looks tired, and she said you ran away from her. Why would you leave her behind? Izuku began to add, wait, it's not what it sounds like. Aiju, but was cut off by another shout. To make matters worse, the resident masochist's voice said, Izuku-kun, how could you leave us to the crowd like that? They pounced on us the moment you left. But they just kept asking us questions instead. More interesting things. This wasn't the kind of meat shield I was talking about. Before turning to face the two women who were staring at him with disbelief, he yelled, that's it, I've heard enough. Clearly, you have no idea how to take care of a party correctly. You abandoned these beautiful ladies to a crowd of people and ran to save your own skin? Unforgivable? His pitch was met with two sardonic looks from the women. You too, why not leave this coward and join my party? I'll make sure to help you with any needs you might have. With a crusader and a thief along with my own swordmaster class, we could be the strongest team in the city, he said. Arisville, not pleased at all with the way this upstart insulted her favorite mortal, said, you're making an awful lot of assumptions, you know. And who do you think you are? Taking the situation and bending it into your favor? I refuse. Darkness declined quietly as well, saying, I like more aggressive men in general, but something about this guy makes me want to punch him instead. Getting angry, disgusted, and pitying looks from the three, he erroneously reasoned, why not? Is it because this guy is blackmailing you or something? That has to be it. Nobody would team up with a coward unless they were being forced to. Izuku felt sorry. This man is narcissistic, geez. As Mitsurugi became a little more composed, he thought, he reminds me of a more eloquent but more egoistic Kachan. Mitsurugi exclaims, that's it. I challenge you to a duel. Which causes the assembled crowd to move outward into a sort of circular arena. Great, people are now also invested in it. Izuku thought bitterly, I can't talk myself out of this. From his time in middle school, he was all too familiar with this type of herd mentality. Sigh, and what would the victor receive then? I don't like to fight for no reason, but you've insulted me. Usually, I could let that slide. But you also insulted my party members and I won't stand for that. So name your conditions. The blonde laughed and continued. If you win, I'll give you anything that is within my power to grant without question. However, if I win, you must let those two leave your party and join my own. He grinned. Izuku flatly denied, drawing multiple gasps in response. I refuse. What you requested isn't mine to give. It's their choice whether they want to join you or not. To say otherwise would be to treat them as objects and not people. Frankly, why I'm disgusted that you would even suggest that. He states the truth. Gaining the crowd's respect and the girls' smiles. Mitsurugi was simply even more furious. You really are a coward. Hiding behind honeyed words to get out of fighting me. Fine, if I win, I'll take whatever gift you were given before arriving here. Is that better? He changed the terms. Izuku could agree to that, he simply nodded in agreement. As Izuku was getting ready for one for all, he said, Arisville-chan, please start the countdown, I'll try to make this quick. He thought that this would be a good opportunity to test out a concept he had while battling the giant toads. I hope it works. When Aris yelled, of course. The fight will start in 3, 2, 1, begin. Izuku immediately charged his opponent at full speed. Mitsurugi was able to track Izuku's movements and was about to slash at him with Graham. But Izuku smirked and gestured at the unprepared blonde with his open palm before he could even raise it. But Izuku had taken a cue from Kachan and used his transmutation ability to ignite his new nitroglycerin sweat and create a tiny spark using One for All's electricity. The outcomes were impressive. Rapidly spreading, the explosion struck Mitsurugi in the chest, briefly blinding him. Izuku was able to get behind him and land a strong blow to the back of his head, knocking him down like a bag of potatoes, even though it didn't do much damage. As I had anticipated, he neglected to build up his durability because he depended on that sword too much. As he looked at the fallen swordsman, Izuku thought pitifully, anyone faster than him, or who could surprise him in a fight, would win every time. It was actually 2 hits. Wow. The new guy just beat the town ace in 1 hit. The statement, and he did it to protect the chastity of his 2 female party members, was accurate, but the way he put it, he can even cast detonation magic already. Just how strong is this guy? Was not. I'm not sure how I could accomplish that. The story just kept getting more ludicrous and twisted as the people continued to hype Izuku up. I have a feeling that this will not go well. Izuku thought, I should grab Arisville-chan and Darkness-san and run for it. Then, he grabbed them by the arm and ran. He didn't want to stay and see how this turned out. Darkness stuttering and blushing, he said, Izuku-kun, this is too soon, I didn't know you could be so forceful. And that battle, as we were in midair. Sorry about grabbing you two so suddenly without saying anything, I just didn't want to leave you all behind again. We should head back to the inn for now until this all blows over. I don't think the crowd will leave us alone if we go back. Izuku responded with two nods. Darkness rubbed her face and exclaimed, "Oh my, Izuku-kun is even more forward than I expected, taking me to his home on the first day. You just keep surprising me." As things continued to get stranger, the green hero accelerated, being cautious not to break the sound barrier once more. He put the two girls down after they finally arrived without any problems. "Sorry about bringing you along, Darkness-san. If you would like, I could accompany you to your mansion before coming back here. It's the least I can do." Izuku offered, but she said it was okay and that she would prefer to go down alone if she were attacked by a crowd. With a warped smile on her face, Darkness departed after saying that. "I know she's a good person at heart, but that personality of hers is hard to keep up with," he grumbled to himself. Arisfiel stated without opposition, "Yeah, don't worry about it, you'll get used to it eventually. Anyway, we should get to bed, it's getting late, and we should be up early tomorrow to get in on the best quests." He would like to put it behind him for the time being because today was quite exhausting. And so his first day in this new world came to an end. I hope the upcoming ones won't be too busy. After switching from contemporary beds to a hard, thin bed in a medieval inn, Izuku woke up with a sore back. To put it mildly, it was an experience. He recalled precisely where he was and how he had arrived as he opened his eyes. Iris changed into her clothes just in time. Izuku hit his head on the back of the bed, causing a tiny bit of wine to fall out of his lips. Bonk. OWW. This prompted Arisfiel to finish getting dressed as soon as possible. "Why, you didn't see anything, right?" she queried timidly, her face flushed. Izuku muttered, "No, of course not, I would never, not that you aren't beautiful, you are. It's just that I woke up and forgot that we were in the same room," until he heard Arisfiel laughing. She smiled as she reassured the young hero, "Don't worry, Izuku-kun, it's fine. I figured that this could happen, so don't worry, I trust you. My goddess is a real tease. I might not be around much longer, so I should move quickly to find us a permanent home." After controlling his blush, Izuku came to this conclusion. It's not that he didn't like the scenery. Aris had the grace to leave the room after the entire incident so that Izuku could quickly get dressed and begin his daily routine as best he could. Making some improvised personal hygiene products with the help of the internet and his transmute ability. Then he looked to see if anything had changed on his adventurer's card. "Nice, I'm level 3. I suppose those toads give out good express." He then joined Aris outside. Izuku concurred with her when she suggested that we go to the Guildhall, where Darkness-chan was probably already waiting for us. Before Izuku had an idea, they had already begun moving in that direction. Aris smirked when he asked, "Should we walk, or would you prefer the expressway?" They arrived at the Guildhall in a matter of minutes, fully cowled. In order to prevent Aris from becoming too uncomfortable, Izuku slowed down this time to about car speed. To the joyous cries of the goddess, he did, however, get a few flips in here and there at her own insistence. For some reason, Izuku kept hearing people refer to him as the mighty green hero on the way there. Being referred to as a hero was actually quite flattering, so he didn't mind at all. If it ended there, at least, but ever since he beat that Mitsurugi guy, the women in town have also been staring at him strangely, which has scared him. As they entered the guild building and made their way to the quest board, Izuku thought, "Whatever, I'm sure this will all blow over eventually." At some very risky quests, Darkness was already there, waiting for them, blushing and panting. As we got closer, she said, "Good morning. How was your night?" as her poise gradually returned. Not wanting to worry her, Izuku half lied and said, "It was great, I slept just fine." He laughed uneasily and said, "Although the morning was a bit rough for me, hee." Aris teased, "Oh come on, Izuku-kun, it wasn't that bad unless you think I'm ugly." To his embarrassment, Izuku exclaimed, "Oh of course not. I would never think that you're very beautiful." This caused the other adventurers in the guild to roar with laughter. According to Aris, "Izuku-kun, you're so easy to tease, never change. Anyway, we should get started looking for quests. The best ones always get taken, so let's go." The three then searched for a suitable quest and ultimately chose a straightforward kobold extermination quest. They needed to be taken care of because it seemed that the small dragonoids were robbing and killing bystanders who approached too closely. 300,000 Aris were mentioned in the reward, plus an additional 10,000 for each kobold that was killed. Izuku grabbed the quest sheet and said, "This one should do fine. It pays really well and it looks like we could help a lot of people by getting rid of these monsters." A young woman's voice interrupted them just as they were about to speak with Luna to formally make it official. Wait. A girl with red eyes and dark hair said. She was dressed in a red dress with gold trim, a black cloak, and a generic large wizard hat. In addition, she wore an eye patch and a pair of mismatched leggings, one of which had bandages wrapped around it and the other was black. The way she introduced herself would have made even the most renowned shunny heroes blush with shame. My name is Megaman, the legendary archwizard of the Crimson Demon clan, master of explosion magic. I have heard about your legendary exploits and have decided to join you. Now tell me, do you wish to utilize my forbidden dark powers? She said. And that name? Is it simply another worldly thing? I wonder. Izuku reasoned that since he didn't want to be impolite, he ought to at least give her a chance. He looked at his friends and said, I wouldn't mind if you joined our party, Megaman-san, but it's not just my decision. They simply shrugged and let the young hero handle it. If you would like to join the party, then come with us on our quest so that we can see what you can do. If that's okay with you. Izuku replied courteously. In any case, the best way to test her claims would likely be to put her to the test in combat. She certainly exudes enthusiasm when she says, of course, I'll prove myself to you. Our enemies will be blown away with the power of my explosion magic. Izuku spotted a girl who looked a lot like her hiding behind the quest board as she was preaching about the benefits of explosion magic. Staring at Megaman, she appeared anxious and on the verge of tears, feeling sorry for what must have been a fellow introvert when Izuku gestured for her to join them. She approached the group despite appearing surprised. Megaman was interrupted when she saw the other girl. You look a lot like Megaman-san, and you were looking at us. Do you two know each other? Izuku asked. Yun, what are you doing here? She yelled, gesturing accusingly at her. As Yun started to respond, I guess they did know each other. She enthusiastically responded to the question, saying, I came here after finally mastering high-tier magic. Now that I can, I wanted to join a party and finally challenge you to a duel for the title of the best Crimson Mage. But at the end, she appeared a little embarrassed. The two largely normal partygoers thought, I suppose she's more self-aware about her chuny tendencies. As she began to leave, she said sadly, but I see now that you've already offered to join these people. I'll just go then. I'm sure you would only want one archmage. Actually, I don't mind if both of you join. In fact, we still haven't decided if Megaman would join in the first place. We planned on heading off to finish a quest as a trial by fire, so to say. You can join us if you want. Depending on how well you do, we'll decide whether you guys can join or not. Izuku told her to stop. She turned back with glowing ruby eyes and the brightest smile they had ever seen. It really did look cute. She bowed to them and said, really, thank you. Thank you. I promise I won't disappoint you. She then made her own pose while facing Megaman. As she yelled, Megaman, I challenge you to a duel. Whoever takes down the most enemies wins. Megaman grinned. She said, I accept. My explosion magic can't lose in a battle of sheer firepower. And then she fell to the ground, or nearly fell to the ground, before Izuku caught her, his face showing concern. Concerned for the little girl, he inquired, are you okay? What happened? She sadly said, sorry, it's just that. I haven't eaten in over 2 days. This is not acceptable. Even though we didn't have a lot of money right now, we could still afford one meal. In any case, we had to eat breakfast. Izuku said, don't worry then, you and Yun-san can join us for breakfast. I'll pay, I insist. She gave him a grateful look, and the others grinned. He gestured for a waitress who was strolling by to approach. Izuku gestured to the 4 girls behind him and said, excuse me, could you please prepare some food for us? Anything filling will do. Just don't go over 25,000 iris, please. Before departing, she bowed and said, of course, sir. I'll come back as quickly as possible. Following a substantial meal and a heartfelt thank you from the 2 Crimson Lawless, Iris explained the purpose of the quest to our 2 new recruits before we set out to hunt our prey. Izuku inquired about their origins and the reason behind their desire to attend the celebration as we were on our way. Yun initially agreed with Megaman when she said, we're both from the Crimson Demon Village, known far and wide for its high-level mages. We came to join your party for the same reason, I think. You appeared out of nowhere with extremely high stats and another powerful companion at your side. I suppose that would raise some suspicions. There's a record for that. You then beat the giant toad quest in record time? And that very same day you defeated this town's strongest adventurer in under a minute. The strongest explorer? That blonde man? Really? The last thing she said to get Izuku excited was, with a reputation like that, who wouldn't want to join you? He was relieved. I guess you're right, I just never thought that what I did was very impressive, he responded with humility. Yun Yun added, and you're really humble, please stop. To tell you the truth, neither Megaman or I have been treated very warmly by the local adventurers. We haven't been treated with hostility or anything, but you're the first person to help us and even buy us a meal. So please accept our thanks. Yen replied with a bow. To be honest, Izuku was taken aback. I made the right decision by assisting these two, who have been disregarded and shunned by others. As they continued to walk in the direction of their destination, he thought, hopefully, they will make a good enough impression so that the others will let them join. He smiled sadly. At last, the group arrived at their destination and set up camp just outside the kobold's range. Izuku eventually proposed while they were in the middle of a strategy meeting. He asked, receiving a little nod from Yun Yun and a more apprehensive one from Megaman. Excuse me, but can I see your adventurer cards? It would be helpful if I knew what both of you could do. Well, I wonder why she is so anxious. He glanced at their cards and thought, since we met her, she's been pretty confident. Yun Yun level 7. Class, Archmage. Power, 18 Vitality, 2200 IQ. Knowledge, 30-20 Dexterity. Good Fortune, 10. She was a new adventurer without a party, so Izuku asked, not bad, your intelligence is really high, and your wisdom is also pretty good. You're also level 7, why is that? Before she met them, did she go on solo quests? I usually go around and help new adventurers that bite off more than they can chew, although I'm sure they didn't need me in the first place. I just keep doing excessive things, sorry, she said with a blush of shame. Her confidence needs to be improved. However, she helped so many people that she passively raised her level to 7. Looking over the known spells section, Izuku thought, even if she has her flaws, that pretty much guarantees my vote for her to join. Spells. Fireball, Blade of Wind, Lightning, Paralyze, and Sleep are examples of intermediate magic. Advanced magic. Teleport, Bottomless Swamp, Light of Saber, and Inferno. She blushes at my compliment and practically glows with happiness. You also have a nice selection of battle and utility spells. These would be very useful in almost any scenario. Impressive. Now for Megaman. As soon as he glanced at her card, he noticed a problem. Megaman level 6, Strength 17, Vitality 26,231 is the intelligence score. Knowledge 3221 Dexterity. Good Fortune 16. Izuku read her list of known spells and paused before saying, your stats are very similar to Yunyun's, if a little higher, but... Advanced spells. Explosion. She was only familiar with one spell. Megaman gave a ferocious nod when he said this. With passion, she exclaimed, yes. Explosion magic is the only type of magic that I will ever use. I love explosion magic and absolutely refuse to use any other spell. Yunyun, who was already accustomed to it, was the only one who did not perspire. Izuku inquired, receiving no complaints. Darkness did mutter something about not being used as a shield, but they chose to disregard that for their own mental health. Oh. Okay. Well, with these spells, I would like for Yun-Yun-san to go first. Please demonstrate any and all spells that you think would do well against these kobolds. When you reach about half mana, just fall back and let Megaman have her turn. If there are any kobolds left after that, we will take care of them. Aris used her detect ability to spot a few tiny shadows moving to their right as we got closer to their territory. As Yunyun was getting ready for her first spell, she said, Yun-Yun-san, get ready, they're coming from our right, we'll leave them to you, so just tell us if it becomes too much, okay? With a fireball, she threw it in their general direction. 2 kobolds were struck directly by the spell, and the dry grass beneath them aided in the rapid spread of the flame. Too foolish to roll on the ground, 2 more caught fire and fled into the distance. Yun-Yun used another spell to stop the final 2 from attacking the other party members. She chanted, Blade of Wind, as the 2 kobolds were split apart by a broad, invisible wind blade. Arisviel commended her for a job well done, saying, good job Yun-Yun-san. That was an excellent work you just did. And your casting speed was also rather good. The compliment made Yun-Yun flush. Keep that up and you'll become a party member in no time, her mother said. Darkness and Arisviel nodded in agreement as Izuku said, let's keep moving. If there are this many kobolds out so far, then that means they probably have a gathering spot near here. With any luck, we can find it and end their reign of terror today. Our 2 new friends gazed at him with a mixture of amazement and excitement. What caused those 2 to get so excited, I wonder? As the group headed in the direction the burning kobolds were running, Izuku thought, oh well, as long as they're having fun, I guess. They continued after they eventually located the bodies. We made the decision to approach after hearing the sound of a nearby river. The group followed the river and eventually came upon a walled-off camp populated by kobolds. Okay, we have a river. We should follow where it leads. Chances are the kobolds will be camped somewhere along it. Izuku nodded to Megaman, who said, Izuku-san, can I take care of this one? With my explosion magic, I can destroy the whole camp in one blow. Yunyun had already had her turn, so it was only fair. Megaman began chanting after taking his gesture as her cue. Darkness that is darker than dark and blacker than black. Combine with my deep crimson, I implore you. The moment of awakening has arrived. Justice, descending upon the unfailing border. Now manifest as ethereal distortions. I want my raging power to be a destructive force. An unmatched destructive force, reduce everything to cinders. And emerge from the depths. As the chant came to an end, everyone in the party thought, that is one long-winded spell. Explosion. It did just that. Both the camp and the surrounding area were totally destroyed. Only a 20-meter crater remained on the ground. Izuku compared it to Bakugo's howitzer impact, but it was roughly twice as strong. Izuku approached Megaman, barely noticing that she was going to fall again, after he had dealt with a mild case of PTSD and the ringing in his ears. Before she could make a fool of herself, he caught her and asked, Wow, are you okay? Why yes. Explosion may be the greatest spell, but its mana cost is too much for me. As such, I can only use it once a day and afterward I'm left immobile for a few hours. Sorry for not telling you beforehand, she grumbled. It's fine, honestly that spell was pretty incredible, it reminded me of what one of my old friends could pull off. But you really should have told me beforehand, I would have prepared for it and you wouldn't have to collapse like that. Izuku stated to her prior to removing a water vial out of his pocket. The others watched as his hand dipped into the water and changed into an opaque blue liquid. Izuku had learned about mana potions yesterday while playing around with his mana. He could make them by concentrating on the sensation of mana pouring into a liquid as it passed through my body. He then effectively creates an endless supply by using random junk to power the process using the transmute ability. He handed it to her and then remembered that she was immobile. Here, drink this. One of my skills lets me create mana potions among other things. It should help you get back on your feet. She swallowed the potion by herself after he brought it to her lips. She appeared much healthier after a short while and even got to her feet by herself. Unfortunately, Izuku didn't have enough mana to cast anything because she hadn't mastered the transfer process yet, but it's sufficient for the time being. She barraged him with questions, and all Izuku could do was nod uneasily. This potion that you made is incredible. Dad would kill for something like this. How many can you make? Can you make enough so that I can cast explosion more than once a day? She asked. It was possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you, exclaimed the overly enthusiastic lowly wizard, trying to give Izuku a death hug. After a while, he became a little embarrassed and attempted to remove her. Izuku paused her bear hug to listen to Yunyun and said, Okay, Megaman-san, I get it. Please calm down, I've come to my decision, and I think the others agree with me. He said, I think I speak for all of us when I say that you're both more than welcome to our party. To Arisa's and Darkness's cheers of approval. Izuku gave them startled looks as he said, Welcome to the team, you two. Now we should head back. You two will receive 70% of the reward for your efforts. Really? You would really give us? Yunyun began, then paused to count with her hands. 252,000 aris? I count as their shocked expressions increase. Darkness exclaimed, Izuku-kun, you can do arithmetic? That type of education must have been uncommon in this world. Izuku says, Yeah, it's pretty common in my world. He realizes his error much too late. I turned pale when Yunyun asked, Your world? Izuku yelled, I can explain. Arisfiel sighed in frustration, and Darkness shook his head at my mistake. On that day, we had 2 new heroes and 2 new party members ready to take on the Demon King and bring Aris home. The 2 newest members of the party were brought up to speed on the situation and their ultimate objective of defeating the Demon King and bringing Aris back to her home after hours of explanations, confessions, and passionate denials that what he said wasn't part of his Chuny backstory. Their responses were both heartwarming and somewhat concerning. Since the 2 joined our party, Megaman has been much kinder to Yunyun and has included her in her Chuny speeches. You want to defeat the Demon King to return a goddess to her station. What a perfect grand quest for the 2 greatest members of the Crimson Demon clan, she declared proudly. Agreed. I would be more than happy to join you on such a virtuous quest. Alongside my greatest rival and new friend Megaman, I'll do my best, Yun Yun had started to indulge in her own chuny impulses, though she wasn't as extravagant as Megaman, because Megaman had become friendlier to her and we had accepted her as a party member without question. As the group of 5 sat around a table conversing in relative harmony, Izuku thought, I suppose you could say that they balanced each other out. Izuku did his best to respond to Darkness's and the 2 wizards' inquiries about his former world. The first and most general question they posed to him was, how different is your world compared to ours? Izuku searched for the right words to compare and contrast the 2 worlds and said, that's a pretty loaded question. To keep the answer simple, this world resembles the state that my own world was in a few thousand years ago. Technologically and socially speaking anyway. So your world was more advanced. How, exactly? You said socially and technologically, so I assume that you had a lot more efficient manufacturing and agriculture or something similar. Darkness was partially right. That would explain the quality of those clothes you're wearing. The craftsmanship is so precise and uniform that it almost looks like a noble's garb. Megaman said with a bit too much volume. The others began eyeing Izuku up, and whispers began to spread across the guild hall. However, Izuku wouldn't notice the results until much later because he was too preoccupied with the conversation. Among other things, yes. For example, our world is very reliant on machines. Most human labor that would be considered tedious, time-consuming, or just strenuous in this world would be solved in minutes or even seconds with the use of machines. These clothes in particular are pretty high quality, but nothing that the average person couldn't afford. It's actually my school uniform, and the manufacturing process that made them could produce hundreds of these in a few hours. He responded, putting his clothing into perspective. School? Did you go to an academy? That explains how you know arithmetic so well. Darkness replied. Izuku nodded as he recalled UA with fondness. Yeah, in my world most countries make it mandatory for children to attend schools for about 12 years. Anything after that is optional, although not every country does it. I was in my 10th year of schooling before I came here. Mathematics was just one subject that they taught, albeit one of the more important ones for modern occupations. He described the system, although there were plenty of variations all over the globe. Yun Yun questioned whether magic would also be replaced by machines, asking, what else can these machines you speak of do? Can they replicate magic in any way? When he said, in a way, you see in my world magic doesn't exist, the 3 of them let out loud gasps. He went on, enjoying the brightness of their faces as he related his stories. Instead, humanity relied entirely on our own ingenuity to get by. In the last 300 years, in particular, technology really started to advance significantly. Science could replicate anything a dedicated mage could do in a matter of seconds, albeit much less effectively. As a general rule, most magic in this world can be replicated with enough effort and resources using mundane means. With the only known exception being teleportation, and even then our society has gotten pretty close with cracking that problem. Halfway through his explanation, Izuku tore out a piece of paper from his journal and began sketching the various machines he mentioned. We invented high-speed transportation that could move about 4 times faster than a horse, and that would keep moving at those speeds for 7+ hours at a time. We also had flying machines for moving long distances and across the oceans when boats were too slow. Megaman practically yelled, "You're an artist too," and Izuku waved him away. He explained why he was skilled at drawing, saying that Izuku would later show them real images on the tablet, but he couldn't exactly pull that off in public without a cover story. Nah, it's just a hobby of mine. I'm no professional or anything. In my world, it's best to have various talents to keep yourself versatile. My own profession was in heroism, so I needed to have some basic knowledge on how to draw to sketch up criminals and such. Perhaps I could disguise it as a magical object. After giving it some thought, he resumed the conversation. The idea of heroism as a respectable career made Darkness's noble knight persona shine through as she exclaimed, "Heroism? That's a career. That sounds much better than an adventurer." Despite their best efforts to maintain composure, the 2 lowly mages' gleaming red eyes betrayed their own curiosity. Oh right, I completely forgot. You see, Izuku was about to launch into a lengthy tirade about the advantages of the hero society he was so accustomed to when he was cut off by the guild's communication system. Emergency quest. Emergency quest. We need all able-bodied adventurers to assemble at the front gate. Izuku stood up, nodded to his friends, and jogged off with them in the direction of the entrance, paying no attention to anything else. Izuku saw the terrified expressions on the faces of the Axel residents on their way there. He questioned the indigenous goddess, Arisviel-chan. Do you know what this is about? Was the army of the Devil King on the attack? Did the attacks involve seasonal monsters? Her voice was dull as she said, "Oh, it's probably just cabbage harvesting season. At that, Izuku halted his run and turned to face Aris in confusion. "Cabbage?" she asked, going on to describe how the flying monstrosities of this world differed from the cabbage of his world. Izuku thought, well, I did sign up to go to a fantasy world, but this is a bit much even for me. Vegetables were still vegetables in a world full of oddities. There were thousands of cabbages, and they looked like locusts when they arrived. Izuku heard in passing that each head was valued at roughly 10,000 Aris. As they approached, he thought, at least this should be profitable. I wonder if a full-powered Carolina Smash would just dislodge all of their little wings. Izuku exclaims aloud, "Nah, too risky." Then he fully cowls and stops the swarm in its tracks. Since they were so far from the city, he could move at a high speed and arrive at them in a split second. Izuku handled it as a precision exercise after that. By attempting to remove the tiny wings from each cabbage without damaging the main body, he was able to get into a comfortable rhythm and take a sizable portion of the swarm for himself, which allowed the other explorers some breathing room. The adventurers behind Izuku watched in utter awe of Izuku's feat of agility and speed. So much so that they hardly paid attention to the cabbage wave that was coming their way. Fortunately, Aris remained vigilant and shielded the stunned group while shouting, "Get your heads in the game. I know he's impressive, but that's no excuse to let him do all the work." The adventurers then joined the battle with renewed vigor. Yun Yun and Megaman, meanwhile, merely observed from the sidelines. Unfortunately, they couldn't use their magic against their tasty enemies because it was simply too destructive. Megaman would typically find this meaningless, but Yun Yun was able to persuade her to hold back in exchange for taking her new friend out to cast explosions every day. Pav of Izuku muttered to himself, "That's 80, this is harder than I thought. Keeping full cowling on permanently is easy enough, but the fine motor control that I need to calculate my jumps and strikes is unreal." He then noticed that darkness was surrounded by dozens of cabbages. Initially, he thought she was okay, but then he realized that these were strong enough to dent her armor. Izuku shouted out his attack without thinking, "Delaware Smash." The shockwave grounded and scattered most of the cabbages around darkness, but to someone with her durability, it felt like a pleasant breeze. As he approached her, Izuku saw that her armor had nearly disappeared, leaving only a black undershirt. But as he grabs her and moves away from the main fighting, he hardly pays attention. She moaned when Izuku asked, "Are you okay, Darkness-san? It looked like they were hitting you pretty hard back there." "Yes, I did forget. I suppose it's okay because it would be bad to simply leave her back there." Izuku looked back at the battle and saw that it was nearly over. The only noteworthy thing he saw was a boy in a green tracksuit using the steel skill to gather a lot of cabbage, and a blue-haired girl assisting the other adventurers by bringing water. One of the two faces he had never seen before was dressed in a very odd outfit. An additional reincarnate. Later, I should say hello. As he carried the still panting darkness to the two crimson demons lounging at the back, Izuku thought, but for the time being, I should check on Aris and see how much we collected. He questioned them, "Have either of you seen Aris-Vil-chan?" They simply indicated the location of Izuku's earlier battle, where Aris was gathering up all of the fallen cabbages. That's probably something he should thank her for later. When it was all over, the group returned to the guild hall to eat some tasty cabbage-based fare, which surprised Izuku by being incredibly tasty and even offering a good deal of experience. He was level 10 after that hunt and meal, and he had a good 30 skill points, which allowed him to buy almost any spell on the list. Since they already had more than enough firepower against the party, he ultimately decided to use the magic canceller spell. For them, a debuff spell would be a useful tool. Izuku noticed the man wearing the tracksuit after completing his purchase and went to greet him. He also saw that he was seated next to the blue-haired girl from before. However, it appeared that the boy would rather she were somewhere else. As she exclaimed, her companion let out a frustrated sigh. "With the money I made from all those cabbages, I can finally move out of that dirty stable. Finally, I'll live someplace befitting of a goddess." Curious, Izuku asked, "Excuse me, but did you just say goddess?" She puffed out her chest and said, as if she recognized the green hero from earlier. She went as far as saying, "Yes. I am the goddess A-", before the boy covered her mouth with his hands to stop her. He tried to whisper, but Izuku could still hear, "Stop calling yourself that, you idiot. It would be bad if." They stop when Izuku says, it's fine. I'm also from Earth. In fact, I have a goddess in my party too." They began to take note of my uniform and recalled my strength. Two clear indicators of a reincarnate. Not knowing any better, the boy remarked, "Oh, that makes more sense. No wonder you're so strong. No way a rookie adventurer could do all that without help." He introduced himself, and Aqua gave him a squeak of outrage. "My name is Sato Kazuma. You can call me Kazuma. The ditz over there is Aqua, the goddess of party tricks, he said. I recognize that name. Aqua gave her a startled and irritated look as Izuku reprimanded her, saying, "Oh, so you're the goddess that brought Mitsurugi here. Aris-chan's senior. I gotta say it was really irresponsible of you to send that guy here without warning him to keep everything about Earth secret." Her irritation at being patronized by another mortal was evident when she said, "You know my junior? Is she the one that gave you that lightning armor thingy?" Izuku replied, "No, that's just my quirk, my gifts were something else." Since Aqua had only been sent here to watch over one rather dull world, mortal terminology was a little off when she asked, "What's a quirk?" A few seconds of puzzled silence were followed by Izuku's words, "Come over to our table, this is going to take a while to explain." After 10 minutes, Izuku was called a lucky bastard by Kazuma-san. He pointed to Aris, who flushed, and Aqua, who pouted, and said, "So let me get this straight. You come from a world where superpowers are real, you died in a super-heroic way while attending a school for actual superheroes, and you then met the superior goddess over there." Izuku nods. "That was roughly correct. And got to get 2 gifts instead of 1 because of how you lived." He concluded, a little breathless from the admittedly unbelievable tale I had conjured. "Then she got kicked out of heaven for pretty petty reasons and now you want to kill the Demon King in order to help her get back. He came from a world where quirks were still considered a fantasy, to boot." Izuku affirms, "That sums up the situation, yes." Kazuma said that he needed a minute by himself after glancing at Aqua and the other partygoers. Izuku muttered to himself, "Well, that was weird. I guess he just needs a minute to process everything." He then turned to face Aqua. He looked at the other members of my party and said, "Since you're a friend of Aris-chan, I wouldn't mind if you and Kazuma-san joined our party." I think the others agree. They nodded to themselves, and Aqua appeared to appreciate the assistance greatly. Due to the recent dearth of simple quests to finish, it appears that these two have been having financial difficulties for the past few weeks. Luna clarified that all of the smaller monsters dispersed when a powerful demon general showed up near the city. Fortunately, we should have economic stability for a long time until the general decides to leave now that the Cabbage event is over, in relation to which. Aqua yelled, "What do you mean it's mostly lettuce?" at Luna, who was standing next to her with her cabbage, or lettuce, as it were, stacked. Izuku felt a little sorry for her because that was some very unfortunate luck. Darkness inquired inquisitively, "So Kazuma-san, how much did you make after the harvest?" After a while of silence, he answered. In an attempt to avoid drawing too much attention, I said, "About 1,000,000. After catching a glimpse of Kazuma, Aqua tried to woo her. Seeing through the act in a moment, Kazuma said, "Stop that, just tell me what you want already, I won't fall for your tricks." With tears in her eyes and a bow in desperation, Aqua pleaded, "Please Kazuma-san, let me borrow some money. I thought I was going to strike it rich so I took out a large loan of 100,000 Aris, and now thanks to that stupid lettuce I can't pay it back," she said. Izuku guessed, "Sounds rough, but Kazuma-san doesn't seem like the type of guy to just give you money." Her guess was confirmed when Kazuma flatly refused. He said, "I'm willing to help you pay off that loan, but you'll have to pay me back afterward, Aqua-san." He couldn't just let her get away with it or she wouldn't learn her lesson. She hugged his legs and angrily exclaimed, "Thank you Izuku-sama. You're a lifesaver." Her tears, which he could only interpret as relief, soaked my pants completely. Kazuma asked his fellow green adventurer, wondering how their luck would stack up, "Thanks for that Izuku-san. I'm tired of fixing this bitchy goddess mistakes all the time. How much did you make off of them anyway?" "About 2 million Aris, but since I'm dividing it equally among myself, Arisville, Darkness, Megaman, and Yun I only made 400,000. Izuku responded with a smile. Megaman questioned their leader incredulously, But Yun and I didn't even help out at all. Why are you giving us so much?" Darkness and Yun both widened their eyes at this. "I'm not anticipating a sizable share, if any." He smiles kindly and tells them that it wasn't their fault that their magic wasn't able to be used in this situation. "You may not have done much today, but you're all still part of the party after all. You deserve a share." You really are a wannabe hero, aren't you Izuku-san? I can respect that. But if you keep this up the rumors about you are just gonna get worse. Kazuma warned me about that. Izuku questioned him. Rumors? What rumors? He had never heard of any rumors until now. Well, you arrived out of nowhere and completely stole the show with your incredibly high stats. You then proceeded to break the record for the giant toad mission by a large margin. You then proceeded to publicly defeat and humiliate the town's strongest adventurer in under a second. You also have a team full of beautiful, powerful women that were often rejected by everyone else before you took them in. Kazuma put Izuku's predicament in the most feasible. He gave Izuku a buddy hug as he said, "So basically everyone here thought that you're some kind of wannabe harem lord. At first anyway, but then you actually kept succeeding, so now they think you're the real deal. Congrats, you've achieved every man's dream." Izuku was lying motionless, trying to take in what Kazuma had just said, his face flushed. It was made worse by the fact that, following Kazuma's explanation, even more people began to stare at them. As their day came to an end, Izuku had to deal with yet another awkward social situation in the addition of 2 new party members. 3 days have passed since Kazuma and Aqua joined the group. They haven't been able to take any quests either because of the Demon King's general who arrived earlier, so each member decided to spend their time bettering themselves. Aqua made the ironic decision to take a part-time job selling cabbages. It was her only chance to save up enough cash to pay Izuku back for his loan. Since then, she has been working hard and has almost earned 100,000 Iris, which is surprising. Izuku was simply proud of her, but Kazuma and Iris were completely taken aback by her display of resolve. Megumin made the decision to practice her explosion magic every day, and when she ran out of mana, Yun Yun and Kazuma went with her to carry her back, which took a little longer than usual because she requested that Izuku give her 6 mana potions daily in order to optimize her training for explosions. He readily agreed because it was also fairly good training for him, even using transmutation to increase his mana efficiency. Izuku believed darkness might have been concealing something from them, but she chose to return home and train physically. Everyone had secrets, so whatever. While she was rebuilding her information network, Iris also visited her local church after hearing complaints about avaricious priests, but the leads eventually dwindled. Izuku, on the other hand, had a whole routine. He assisted Kazuma with combat training in the morning. They decided that even basic training would be very beneficial because the former NEET came from a relatively peaceful world and had no idea how to fight. After that, Izuku would prepare 6 mana potions and give them to Megumin. Yun Yun and a worn-out Kazuma would then accompany her to her training for explosions. He would train with one for all after lunch. After just 2 days, not much had changed, but he was able to increase his startup time and decrease the stamina drain. He practiced his transmutation skill after exhausting himself. Right now, the most crucial thing he needs to learn is how to safely and directly transform physical matter into mana, which was far more difficult to accomplish. It was essentially a refresher course on One for All. The smallest grain of sand would instantly transform into an absurd quantity of mana. He would take in as much as he could, and the remainder would need to be released somehow. The discharge was always violent, matching one of Bakugo's more powerful explosions each time, and it left Izuku's arms in a mess after each use, which was terrible. Fortunately, Aqua was there to help him recover from each near miss, formally waiving the amount she owed him in exchange for the assistance. Her joyful expression was so precious. She then quit her part-time job to work full-time as my trainer. For the young hero, getting to know Aqua was an experience. The best way to describe her would be simple. She wasn't cruel or anything. Although her bluntness might turn off some people, Izuku hardly noticed it after years of working with Bakugo. At last, the group gathered at the guild hall for dinner at night. They then went to the inn, where they all spent the night. The natives would listen to Kazuma and Izuku share stories about their respective worlds. Izuku would tell them about his training, hero society, and even some stories from his time at UA. The stories captivated almost everyone, including Kazuma, who was curious about the sophisticated technology and hero system of Izuku's world. We were enjoying a rare day of leisure on the 4th day. Darkness had returned home and reintegrated as though she had never been gone. Izuku became intrigued and questioned the 2 goddesses about the characteristics of a dullahan, including their abilities, shortcomings, and strengths. Unexpectedly, both of them knew a great deal about the undead. Aqua even had some enlightening things to say about them. Izuku made the somewhat deadpan observation, so dullahans are weak against water, holy-based magic, and possibly fire, so essentially if a dullahan were to fight our group it would die instantly. At the moment, Kazuma was also frowning, and the others appeared perplexed. Kazuma chose to go into more detail. He gestures to each party member before pointing to the leader, saying, Water Goddess, Goddess of Luck, Explosion Mage, Fire Mage, and Izuku essentially provides both of them with infinite mana. Kazuma concludes by saying, Hell with our combined luck stats, I'm sure either myself or Irisville-chan could just steal its weapons without much effort. This emphasizes how hopeless the demon general would be if it engaged in combat with them. The news caused the party to reflect deeply, but Luna came in and yelled, so it didn't last long. With some vigor in their step, the group gathered their equipment and made their way to the main gate, where they were told, "Emergency. Emergency. We need all adventurers to arm themselves immediately. Make your way to the main gate and prepare yourselves for battle." Luna sounded much more terrified this time than she had during the Cabbage quest, so it was most likely a serious situation. On the way there, Izuku made a few mana potions in case they were needed. He senses that they will require them. A heavily armored figure on a similarly headless horse greeted the adventurers as they arrived at the gate. As Beldia introduced himself and demanded blood, Izuku muttered to himself, "Speak of the devil, or dullahan in this case." Izuku planned how to respond to him while he was in the middle of his tirade and was able to come up with something reasonably well reasoned. Beldia became enraged because for the past 3 days, someone had been using explosion magic at his castle. Izuku decided that since he knew exactly who had done it, now would be a good time to test out the plan he had devised. Aqua would be the key to this whole situation, so he approached her first. "I'm going to walk up to him and talk. When I call your name, cast the strongest turn undead spell you know. The others should take care of it from there. If all else fails, use your strongest water spell instead," she was told by Izuku. Not that the horseman could see, she nodded to him and smirked evilly at Beldia. As Izuku approached Kazuma-kun and Aris-chan, he thought, "Next is Kazuma-kun and Aris-chan." Kazuma was in a panic, while Aris just gave Beldia a death glare. Izuku then went to the 2 mages who would deliver the final blow. When Aqua casts Turn Undead, use your steel as many times as possible, keep trying until it works. If it fails, just stand back and let Megaman handle the rest. Yun tried to comfort Megaman, who was trembling, but she was also trembling. When Izuku noticed their fear, he put his hands on their shoulders, which appeared to at least partially reassure them. Then he spoke softly into their ears. Their trembling stops when their friend says, "It's going to be okay, you two. I have a plan." Their total faith in their friend overcomes their fear. He hands them his bag full of 4 potions, which was all he could make on such short notice and in the middle of the run. If all else fails and the steals don't work, hit him with your magic Megaman. Yun stay close to her and help her drink mana potions after she casts her spell, otherwise just provide covering fire. I'll handle the rest. The strategy is established. Izuku looked at his fists and thought, we have a number of backup plans in case something goes wrong, and if it all fails. Then let's see if he can withstand a forceful blow to the chest. He approached Beldia with confidence after uttering that mental battle cry. The undead interrupted his tirade when it detected a worthy opponent coming. While attempting to scare Izuku with his horse, he exclaimed, "You? I sense a great deal of power in you, young wizard. Were you the one that attacked my castle?" However, if the green mage was telling the truth, it simply didn't look good without a head. "Correct, I guess you finally took the bait. Who would have thought that a general of all things would leave their stronghold after being annoyed for a few days?" Izuku told the truth. While the adventurers devoured the story, Beldia was surprised. "You're an undead general, right? Let me guess, now you're going to summon a bunch of weaker undead minions. Well, go ahead, summon as many as you like. It won't make a difference." The green hero chided. "Those bluffing lessons are more helpful than I anticipated, so I need to thank Kazuma later." Beldia called forth roughly 3 dozen undead soldiers and exclaimed, How dare you? Fine, you asked for it, come. My undead knights. Give them a taste of hell. Even though they are relatively low level, they are still formidable opponents for novice explorers. There, we don't need to be concerned about a counterattack now that his minions are out. After giving it some thought, Izuku started his plan. He shouted, "Aqua now!" and the goddess instantly cast a spell that had been prepared. Aqua yelled, "Sacred Turn Undead." The outcome was immediate. Beldia was left rolling and screaming on the ground, and his minions froze in their tracks, unsure of what to do now that their leader was no longer in command. 2 cries of "Steal" were heard shortly after, and Aris was able to seize his enormous sword while Kazuma received something a little more essential. Kazuma asked curiously as the yelling sounds approached him, He saw that he was holding a screaming head that was motionless when he looked down. He smiled malevolently and yelled at the other explorers. He played with Beldia's head like a European football and then passed it to the others, saying, "Hey, want me to show you guys an old game that we played back in my homeland? It's called football." They didn't have time for that, even though it was funny. Izuku gave the order, "Megaman, don't get distracted, cast explosion on his minions before they can react." And she eagerly complied. Izuku gave a few more commands while she was casting, calling out to the adventurers who were teasing the dullahan's head. Izuku called out, receiving applause. Listen. Anyone that can cast create water, use your spells on Beldia's head, it should finish him off. The only thing he could say before he drowned in a torrent of water was, wait, I can't die like this. Not in this town of noobs. His body, left on the ground, smoked purple, and his eyes lost their red glow. After one explosion, it started smoking for other reasons. One of the adventurers pointed at me and exclaimed, holy shit, he actually did it. He planned it from the very beginning. Wait, it was all a bluff. I didn't want him to come here, even though the plan worked out better than anticipated. A young female wizard with wavy red hair exclaimed, he even made it so that we could all participate in our own way. He's so thoughtful. I didn't give that much thought, but I guess it's good that everyone was able to assist. I imagine the experience rewards must be enormous for novice adventurers. The adventurers in attendance gave Izuku another round of applause when Luna declared, and now that that general's been taken care of, the weaker monsters should return soon. He just saved the town from financial ruin. Please stop, Izuku thought in shame as a tall, muscular man who, if he remembered correctly, was a regular in the guild, stepped up. That seems to have broken the camel's back, and now, not only do we get our regular income back, but we also get to cash in the reward money for killing the general ourselves. Everyone dropped to their knees and uttered those words. Thank you, Izuku-sama. They exclaimed loudly. The green explorer in question fled to his room because he could stand it no longer. By tomorrow, hopefully, this mess will have subsided. Kazuma's perspective, and there it goes again. I'm 100% sure that Izuku didn't plan for that horseman to come here. I guess those lessons I gave him came in handy, I said with a loud chuckle. Before realizing that the crowd was also staring at me, I thought, but now that poor, lucky bastard is even more famous, I wonder how high that general's bounty was. Hey Kazuma, exclaimed Megaman. I answer, yes, I'm Kazuma. The other adventurers listened, hoping to learn more about Izuku's legendary plan. Did you know about Izuku-kun's plan too? Is that why you're laughing? Even I didn't know about it, I just went and trained my magic like normal, she said. Izuku, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. As I continued to spin the longest bullshit story I've ever thought of, I praised my new blood brother. I don't know what will get us free meals if this doesn't. I pondered, but I also pictured the more. Fame would give me adult advantages. 300 million Aris. Izuku exclaimed upon learning of Beldia's enormous bounty. Although their party did the majority of the work, everyone else participated. Not that I'm ungrateful, but why are we getting the full reward? Shouldn't the bounty be split amongst everyone that participated? Additionally, he felt bad about taking all the benefits because it was their fault that Beldia attacked the city in the first place. The other members of the guild agreed to give all of the monetary rewards to you and your party. If it weren't for your help, and that genius plan you came up with, we probably wouldn't have survived much longer economically without the easier quests. Luna clarified for the group. Even if Beldia had not attacked, the city's finances would have suffered if he had remained for much longer. Plus you killed a demon general. That alone is a feat worthy of the highest level hero. Personally, I wish we could have done more for you. Luna gave a grateful bow. At last, her cheeks flushed. A male adventurer who wasn't a complete tool and who was genuinely heroic. Izuku hated taking credit for what he didn't do, but if he told them the truth, Megaman, Kazuma, and Yun might suffer. I'm sorry, but I can't accept this for my own reasons. If you have to give me that reward then. I want a quarter of it to be divided amongst the other guild members and another quarter for the guild itself. It's the least I can do for roping you all into my plan. Izuku-sama. As a representative of the guild, and as a woman, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for this. That was a truly remarkable act of generosity, particularly for their tiny adventurers guild branch that wasn't exactly wealthy. They might even be able to pay off all of their debts from the week of inactivity right away with this. Well, Izuku had gone as far as he could that day in terms of awkwardness. He merely gave a nod and moved on toward his group. Yun simply looked perplexed. Kazuma had a shit-eating grin on his face. Aqua and Megaman were giving me the thumbs up for some reason, and Darkness and Aris were giving him nice smiles for what he had done. Damn it, Kazuma-kun. I'm going to find a way to repay him for spreading those rumors. It's too early, but I know I wanted to be the most popular hero. Izuku glared back at Kazuma while sobbing inwardly. He had a ton of money to divert his attention from all the attention, but this was going to take weeks to get used to. In essence, the group earned enough money to live comfortably for the ensuing years. So as you probably overheard, our sum total reward for killing Beldia is 150 million Aris, divided equally that adds up to about 21 million Aris each. They asked Izuku what he wanted to buy, looking interested. I have a suggestion on how to spend this, but I will need you guys to approve it too. Being famous did have its benefits, as the locals and adventurers kept providing Izuku with useful information on such matters. There's a mansion for sale. It happens to be in this city right next to the graveyard. Apparently it's being sold for dirt cheap due to an undead infestation. With Aqua here, we can easily exorcise most if not all of them in a day. After that, it would only cost us 100 million Aris to buy it outright. We can use this as our base of operations for the foreseeable future. Plus we'd be helping the community by getting rid of the undead problem before it gets too bad. Izuku put his offer out there and awaited the responses. The first and most excited were Aqua and Kazuma. Kazuma exclaimed, "A mansion? Hell yeah. Shut up and take my money," with extreme joy. A high-level goddess like myself, it is only natural to take out the undead, and a mansion would be a much more suitable domain for me, Aqua echoed with nearly equal zeal. Yun simply nodded, a little embarrassed by her friend's antics, but Megaman posed and said, "It's not a bad idea, this way we can talk with each other more often, and we can even train together as fellow archwizards. You have my share." She was practically bursting with joy at the prospect of living with all of her friends, despite her shyness. They would have a little over 7 million Aris each, which is undoubtedly a significant sum, but the cost of furnishing alone would likely deduct a significant portion of that. Aris shrugged and said, "We already live in the same place anyway, it would be nice to have a proper bed again though." "I'm in, although I think we should do a few more quests to pad out the costs." When Darkness understood what it meant to have 2 men and 5 girls living together, she flushed. "Izuku-kun, I didn't know you had it in you. I'll support this idea in any way I can." The innocent hero is ignorant of the dark fantasies she harbors. The promise of something about darkness is unsettling me. Before proceeding with the plan, Izuku reflected, but at least she agreed. They then decided to meet up just outside the graveyard after sundown. The infestation has been tracked down to the aforementioned graveyard. Information is limited, so all I know is that the event that brings the undead out occurs around midnight. We should head out by nightfall and camp there until it happens. Midnight in the graveyard. As she loaded her plate with her late dinner, Megaman exclaimed, Kazuma, pass the cabbage." Since they would be waiting for a long time anyhow, the group had made the decision to eat here. Izuku, Kazuma, Megaman, Aqua, and Arisville were left to deal with the undead after Yun and Darkness decided to head home and pack their belongings beforehand. As he finished his meal, Izuku thought, it should be around that time. As soon as he did, low-level undead began to emerge from the woodwork. Ironically, despite having 2 goddesses so near to them, they hardly responded to the living at all. Rather, they were all moving in the same direction. It's time to move out. There's some really high-level magic being cast in that direction, and whatever it is, it's attracting undead like a moth to a flame. The group's magic users noticed a glowing magic circle on the ground as we approached the source. Whatever they were casting was unquestionably advanced, with a purple-robed mage at its center. It was as if it was sending the spirits in the area somewhere. Izuku was about to interrupt to ask some questions of the caster, but their resident water goddess spoke first. She messed up the circle on the ground and yelled, "Filthy undead! How dare you cast whatever unholy magic you're using in my presence?" This clearly upset the caster, who pleaded with her to stop. To be honest, it was a little depressing to look at. Izuku called out to the water goddess, who looked shocked at the green hero for defending an undead but gave in out of respect. "Aqua, hold on, let's listen to her at least. Whatever she's doing seems benign at the very least, so it would be wrong to just assume she's harming anyone." Izuku pondered with a hint of concern. Now that I think about it, Aris has also been glaring at the caster this whole time. Did the gods and undead really discriminate so strongly? Izuku inquired coolly, "Excuse me, miss, but what exactly were you doing here? Or more importantly, why are you reanimating the dead?" The final sentence was a little hotter to show that he was serious. "Whiz," the caster continued by saying that she was merely assisting the stray spirits in reaching paradise. She claimed that because the local priests in Aris were avaricious, they prioritized the private cemeteries over the pauper's cemetery. Aris was shocked by this. She genuinely felt bad about what her own priests were doing, and she felt even worse about not catching them. It goes without saying that some wealthy people abruptly lost their good fortune and divine favor for the rest of their lives. They had to make amends and extend heartfelt apologies to the people they had harmed if they wanted it back. The majority of the party dismissed the Lisha's apology for the trouble she caused, claiming that she was offering a service. Izuku, though, had a better idea. "We're sorry for disturbing you then. But we have to ask you to stop doing this, it's attracting too many undead and causing problems for other people. Don't worry though, I'm sure Aqua here is more than happy to send these souls on their way. Izuku was addressing Aqua. When she said, leave it to me, Izuku-kun, I'll do it in the name of the Axis cult. Wiz squeaked in alarm. That was strange, indeed. What's wrong? Izuku inquired, concerned about what might frighten a lich. She screamed in a panic, trying to hide behind Izuku for safety. She's part of the Axis cult? They have a reputation for being completely insane? Aqua screamed in righteous rage. What? Who said such mean things about my children? A god blow to the face was what the person spreading such unfounded rumors about her loyal subjects was requesting. No way. You're the head priestess of the Axis cult. Wiz appeared even more terrified, and despite the fact that she had no pulse in the first place, her skin had somehow turned pale. Aqua smirked smugly at her and posed. She exclaimed, that's where you're wrong, filthy undead. Just before Izuku gave her a gentle head slap. Kazuma was correct. Sometimes this girl needed a little discipline to get her on track. No need to be rude, Aqua. She let out a little whimper and went on. I am the goddess Aqua herself, not the head priest. She exclaimed loudly, displaying a small amount of her sacred energy. Wiz was now almost shivering. Izuku tried to soothe her by placing a hand on her back at this point because he felt bad for her. Then he noticed her eyes widen, but not in fear, and said, don't worry, you've done nothing wrong so she won't hurt you, I promise. Now, since that cat's out of the bag, I guess I should introduce you to Arisville-chan as well. From that name I assume you can guess who she is. Wiz caught Aris's unrelenting glare and bowed. Aris-sama, I ask for your forgiveness. I may be an undead now, but just know that it wasn't by choice. I was turned into this by a greater evil. So please, have mercy, she said with solemnity. This caused Aris' glare to lighten considerably, and it completely stopped when Izuku gave her a beseeching glance. Aris inhaled deeply and attempted to allow reason to triumph over her primal instincts, fighting her own nature as a goddess. Aris responded in a neutral tone, still not entirely in favor of the idea. I understand. If you did not become like this by choice and only chose to live peacefully after being turned, then you have done nothing truly wrong. I can accept this. With a pout, Aqua simply complied. She could also put up with being an undead if Aris could see past it. Good, now that everything is settled, we should go back to the guild to explain what happened. I'll leave out the part about a lich being the main cause, of course, so don't worry about that, Wiz-san. By the by, is there any way we can contact you later? You seem to be a powerful spellcaster and I would like to exchange tips with you if you're willing. Izuku replied with a smile. After all, having more friends never hurts. She left the area, making sure to clean up after herself, after telling the group about a store she owned in the city. Then, before the group made the decision to leave, Aqua cleansed what she could at the time. Fortunately, the guild decided to still award them the prize after they clarified the situation. This was a success because, even though there was no zombie master, they were still able to stop the problem's root cause. Following their reward, the group went to bed and returned to the guild the following day, where they shared breakfast before making their way to the mansion they intended to purchase. Megaman said, this place is huge, and he was right, particularly considering that it was created during the Middle Ages. With a broad smile, Kazuma continued, when you said mansion, I expected a large house, not a huge manor. It even has its own wall. This level of wealth was unfamiliar to him. The only thing lacking was the contemporary comforts they were accustomed to, which Izuku intended to replace shortly. It looks like something a lesser noble would live in. You have good taste, Izuku-kun. It even has a small forest at the back that we could use for training. Darkness offered her opinion. I suppose that a house like this isn't very impressive when you're a duke's daughter. Yun Yun simply sat back, trembling with anticipation. She never imagined that she would live in such an opulent home. Aris inspected the space and gave it his blessing. Now we don't have to share a room anymore, Izuku-kun, unless you still want to, of course. She laughed at me. After living with Aris for a few weeks, Izuku had a slightly stronger defense against teasing, but he still blushed a little and let it go. A well-dressed man who had once owned the mansion left the building as the guests began to settle in. At first, he would give the mansion to the person who completed the quest for free. But Izuku thought of another way because he was still willing to pay. Izuku and the group would purchase the surrounding land in addition to the mansion, with the building itself being a bonus. Good afternoon, Izuku-sama. Here is the deed to this land. I have already made it official with the local governor and Duke Dustiness-sama. Take care of it, along with your vassals. He bowed and left the green hero in yet another awkward situation. Was he just saying vassals? Does this place elevate landowners to the status of nobles? Panicked, Izuku thought, then turned to face the others. They were all staring at him with wide eyes. It was obvious to him that Aris was internally laughing at him, aside from Darkness. But Darkness's expression was strangely reflective. With a gesture toward Izuku, Megaman declared, the rumors were real. There was a lighthearted grin, but her face was also clearly flushed. What rumors? Izuku retorted, utterly embarrassed by the events that had just transpired. My rumors. Kazuma bragged, laughing aloud in public, unable to keep it as subdued as Aris. Damn it. I didn't know being a landowner made you a noble. Izuku became even more alarmed and hurried into the mansion to use a contemporary, plush bed to block out his worries. Baron Izuku had reached his new residence. Izuku had not anticipated this day to begin with him waking up in the middle of the night in the most comfortable bed he had ever slept in. But what can you do when nature calls? He opened one eye and instantly felt regret. A chair that had not been there before was now beside his bed. The eerie Victorian-style doll that was sitting on it only made it worse. Izuku, now wide awake, whispered, I need to find Aqua-san. He got out of bed as quickly as he could and ran to Aqua's room. Izuku rapped frantically on her door, saying, Aqua-san, wake up. I can't deal with ghosts on my own. I can't punch ghosts. Megaman, of all people, was revealed when it opened. In a bewildered panic, he said to her, what are you doing in Aqua-san's room? And where is she? We have a problem? I don't know where Aqua-chan is. I wanted to ask her for a favor but she wasn't here. She replied. Additionally, Izuku could infer what that favor was from the way her thighs were rubbing against one another. Oh okay. This could still be worse. We need to find the others and warn them. There's some kind of poltergeist in this mansion. Izuku explained the problem to her. Megaman nods in agreement, his eyes widening visibly in fear. Numbers provided protection. We started with a risk in the hopes that, as a goddess, she would be able to handle the ghosts. Unfortunately, for some reason, her room was empty. It didn't appear like there was any struggle because her clothes were folded neatly and her bed was made with care. Next we tried Darkness's room. The two other members gave her a sardonic glance as she exclaimed, Izuku-kun, I know you're the master of this house, but it's too soon. You even have Megaman-chan with you. Has her young mind already been corrupted? She said, please give me a moment to prepare myself, as she gradually assumed a delicate position. Izuku just closed the door and walked out. Izuku decided to leave Darkness alone and muttered, I guess that leaves us Yun-Yun-san, and Kazuma-kun. She appeared to require some time to calm down. As they got closer to Yun-Yun's room, they saw that, for some reason, she was already awake and out of bed. Izuku, unsure of why she would be awake otherwise, inquired, did you see the ghosts too? Yun-Yun tilted her head, perplexed. Yun-Yun smiled and said, ghosts? No, I just felt like Megaman-chan was awake, so I woke up on instinct. Unknowingly reflecting one another's thoughts, the other two thought, well, that isn't creepy at all. The group ultimately went to Kazuma's room last because they chose to accept Yun-Yun's peculiarity without question. A girlish scream, ah, came from the person they could only assume was Kazuma. Izuku thought, I guess he found the dolls, and then he ran toward the scream, followed by the two red demons. Izuku noticed Kazuma sprinting toward them as they rounded the bend. Izuku screamed at him, Kazuma-kun, calm down. They may look scary but they're still just dolls, don't panic. Which caused him to slow down and take a deep breath. Sorry about that Izuku-ni. I panicked when I saw that thing in my room. Where's Aqua-baka? Or Aris-chan? We need them for this, he gasped. Izuku came up with a plan. No idea. Neither of them was in their rooms and Darkness is being herself, so we decided to investigate ourselves. Although it wasn't perfect, it was the best solution he could think of. They appeared uncertain, but he told them, we need to get outside. Whatever this thing is, it has the advantage in tight spaces. Mystified, Izuku asked, what's wrong? Kazuma said, I apologize to Izuku-ni, but I kind of have to use the restroom. Whoa, I didn't realize that. Megaman appears just as ashamed. Izuku mentally rewrote the plan, adding, and to make matters worse, I'm starting to lose my grip on it too. It was fairly basic, but it was the best Izuku could do at such short notice. Okay, we'll deal with that first. We need to move in a group. Each of us has to stand in a circle around each other to minimize possible blind spots. Also, keep in physical contact. We don't know if the ghost has any audio tricks up its metaphorical sleeves. After a brief period of silence, Megaman praised Izuku-kun, saying, "You gotta teach me how you come up with all these plans on the fly, it's seriously impressive." Yanyan's eyes glowed once more as she shook her head in agreement. Why? It was a very simple plan, really. Kazuma, who was aware of the fundamentals of slasher films, simply nodded. They do have their own, different, kind of common sense, but in most cases, it was so different from Izuku's that it felt foolish at times. I guess it's just an Earth thing. In any case, the group quickly made their way to the restroom. Before anyone could respond, Kazuma hurried in by himself, disregarding everyone else. It goes without saying that Megaman looked angry, Yanyan blinked, and Izuku just stared at the bathroom door in disappointment before confronting the two red demons. Just prior to a distant scream, Izuku said, "Look alive everyone, we can't let our guard down when it comes to these things." Fortunately, Kazuma finished shortly after, and it sounded like Aqua. As the green pair ran ahead, they heard a faint shout, "Kazuma-kun, let's go, we're heading towards that scream to find Aqua." Yanyan and Megaman should stay here and finish their business. They chose to ignore it, saying, "Crimson demons don't need to pee or anything." With a gulp and two anxious nods, Izuku says, "Kazuma-kun, stay close to me. I can't do much against a ghost, but I can buy you time if they reach us." They then ran in the direction of Aqua's scream. As it happened, Aqua was perfectly fine. In fact, she was casting Turn Undead dozens of times in a row with ease. Kazuma yelled, "Aqua-san! Stop casting that weak-ass spell, use AoE magic." Aqua balked at the sound of his voice and then used her sacred Turn Undead. The dolls were instantly destroyed by a magic circle that swept across the majority of the mansion. Izuku and Kazuma exhaled in relief as the stifling atmosphere from earlier vanished. The happy goddess smiled and blushed when Izuku congratulated her, saying, "Good work, Aqua-san." That was probably most of them. Concerned for his younger teammates, he concluded, "We should really look over the mansion to see where they came from. But for now, let's go back to Megaman-san and Yun-Yun-san. They must be terrified after everything that happened." However, he also had to leave. Izuku bemoaned over one of the more. "The only reason I'm not using one for all is because it would just make my metabolism even faster." Commonplace shortcomings of one for all. The group saw Yanyan keeping watch as Megaman emerged from the restroom as they got closer to the restrooms. Izuku went into the restroom after saying, "Hey guys, the ghosts should be dealt with by now. Please try and find Aris-chan and Darkness-chan and head outside. I'll meet you all there, but for now." After 5 minutes, at the front of the mansion, Aris, Darkness, and everyone else were waiting for Izuku. Izuku asked inquisitively, "Aris-chan, where were you? We tried to find you in your room but you were gone." She simply smiled mischievously at me. Izuku was finally broken by her teasing. Era, you came to my room in the middle of the night, only to find my discarded clothes. How cliché. I trust that you didn't do anything naughty with them." His panic was followed by the realization that it could have been interpreted even more negatively. "Www what, no way. Megaman-san was there TT2, he exclaimed. "I knew it, exclaimed Darkness, her face devoid of intelligence. Once more. In the meantime, Yun-Yun appeared perplexed. Kazuma gave Izuku the thumbs up. Aris was grinning at him like he was eating shit, and Megaman. She approached Izuku and gave him a hug. She even gave him a back pat. Izuku shook his head and went straight to the point, thinking, "At least I have someone on my side. Forget it. We can't waste time right now. We have to find out where that poltergeist came from. Aqua-san, do you have any powers as an archpriest that can help us?" he inquired with hope. Her hands began to glow as she casually said, "Huh? Yeah, sure, just give me a minute." She then started to tell us the poltergeist's backstory. They anticipated only the pertinent details, no more than a brief paragraph. Rather, Aqua began spewing what amounted to a generic soap opera that would make any fanfiction writer of the second-rate variety envious. Before making his way to the rear of the mansion, Izuku reflected, that was an oddly specific metaphor. Aqua claimed that the grave of the girl who was causing all of this was located on a small hill there. Izuku discovered a tiny, unclean gravestone while climbing up. The sight of it darkened his face. It makes sense why there is a poltergeist. He picked up a stone from the ground and used transmute to partially transform it into a soapy solution in a clean rag because he believed that no one should be forgotten. Izuku tried his best to repair the stone, using the rag to clean it and transmute to patch up a few cracks here and there. After a few minutes, the others approached the gravesite, observed what Izuku was doing, and made the decision to wait until he was done. After repairing the stone to the best of his ability, Izuku recited an ancient prayer he had learned in Japan. While he was at it, he even included the names of Aris and Aqua. They must have heard it, because Izuku was drawn to the way they eep behind him. I found the issue. The poor child that died here. Her grave was left alone and forgotten. I think that so long as the stone is maintained, she shouldn't be angry with us anymore. Just in case though, Aqua-san, please purify this land so that she may rest in peace, he sighed. For once, Aqua didn't complain or boast. She simply nods and follows instructions. Izuku questioned whether any of the partygoers would be able to sleep soundly after tonight, but they were all exhausted by that point and decided to call it a day. Hopefully, tomorrow won't be too hectic. Looking down at the most well-known party in Axel, Mohawk Bro began. Okay, so let me get this straight. The others were staring at Izuku with amusement, while the leader was putting his face firmly on his table. He screamed, "You became a noble." By accident, which only caused the green archmage to slam his head against the table once more. Seriously bro, your life is just one big event after the other, huh? The guild teased their green hero, and the entire bar laughed. With a pat on the back, he said, "Aw come on, chin up lad, have some pride in your accomplishments," and turned to leave. Izuku mumbled a little too loudly, sigh. Is this what All Might felt like when his fans cheered for him at first? Izuku was startled and jumped out of his seat when Luna asked, "Who's All Might?" from behind him. Izuku hoped to avoid this, but he assumed that telling Luna would be acceptable. "Sorry for scaring you, Izuku-sama, but who is this All Might? With a name like that he must be really strong," she asked. Even before they were famous, she was always nice to him and the group. Before responding, Izuku checked to make sure no one outside of his own party was listening. "Okay. I'll tell you Luna-san, just, please don't tell anybody else. I can't show you today though, I have to finish a few quests so that I can afford to furnish our new home. After we finish that I promise that I'll answer your question." Izuku replied with a small bow. "I'm sorry I kept her waiting." In a panic, she hurriedly asked him to stop. She whispered, blushing for some reason, "Izuku-sama. Please raise your head, a noble shouldn't bow to a lowly waitress." Luna stopped her panicking when Izuku scowled and met her gaze. "Nonsense, we've known each other long before I became a noble. You're my friend Luna-san, not some lowly waitress, and that won't change because of some measly title," he said without any room for debate. This shocked her into silence, but she eventually came to terms with it. Before departing, she kissed Izuku on the cheek and expressed regret for creating a commotion. She blushed violently as she did so. Izuku's lack of experience with girls was evident, and he wasn't much better. He sighed inwardly, choosing to numb his embarrassment at work by saying, "And the girls are giggling at me. Kazuma is giving me a thumbs too." As he and his group approached the quest board, Izuku remarked, Anyway, we really should get on with picking a quest." As they approached, Aqua approached Izuku with a quest that seemed almost tailored to her, and with a hefty payout as well. He trusted his team, even though it sounds almost too good to be true. "Izuku-kun, look. This quest was made for me. Purifying a lake, we don't even have to kill the giant alligators that live near it, and the reward is a whopping 300,000 Aris," they said. Izuku upgraded the material of the cage Aqua was going to use before they left. "Good work, Aqua-chan. This quest doesn't look very difficult, so we can split the party for this one. You, Darkness-chan, Megaman-chan, and Yun-Yun-chan can finish it on your own. Arisfiel-chan and I will go with Kazuma-kun to Wiz's shop. He's apparently shown interest in visiting her, plus the shop could have some interesting items." After an hour or so, the unearthly trio came into Wiz's store. She was dusting when she caught sight of us, a smile spreading across her face as she recognized us. She was genuinely delighted to see the three and said, "Hello Izuku-kun. Kazuma-san, Aris-sama. It's a pleasure to see you all again. What brings you to my humble shop?" "Good morning, Wiz-san. Kazuma-kun wanted to meet you again." He didn't elaborate further though. "I also wanted to meet you again and check out your store, so I tagged along with Aris-chan, who insisted on joining me." She was beaming when business was mentioned. "Of course. Please have a look around the shop. If there's anything specific that you might want, please don't hesitate to ask me," she replied with enthusiasm. Izuku gave her a smile and gave her a head nod of acknowledgement. Kazuma approached her in the interim and requested a skill. It seems that an adventurer could use any class's skills, including undead ones, though they would cost more. Aris didn't object, but he did appear a little irritated by this. After meeting such a nice lich like Wiz, she's learned to suppress her prejudices a little. When Izuku wasn't present, she said, "I would be happy to help you, Kazuma-san," and demonstrated her skill drain touch. which is a very helpful ability in case Aqua wasn't available for healing or if Megaman and or Yun Yun needed a mana supplement. Speaking of Izuku, he was more than happy to serve as the test dummy when Wiz asked him to. In fact, he hardly felt anything at all. For an archwizard, he seemed to have a respectable mana resistance. Izuku looked around the store to see if there was anything he might want after that was finished. He held up a red vial and said, "Say Wiz-san, what do these potions here do? They aren't labeled or anything." She replied excitedly, "Oh, that one you're holding explodes when you throw it." Izuku cautiously put it back. She looked appropriately reprimanded and vowed to do so as soon as possible. "While that would be useful, I can already make bombs on my own. Also Wiz-san, please label potions from now on. If anyone showed up and wasn't as careful as me, things could have ended poorly," Izuku said to her. "Can I assume that the rest of these potions have similar properties?" he inquired. They were, as it happens. She described the different bottles, saying, "This one over here explodes when you open it." Kazuma exclaimed in alarm. "Why would anyone use something like that? Sounds like a suicide trap." Wiz appeared somewhat embarrassed. Apparently, this was nothing new to her. Izuku tried to comfort Wiz by saying, "Don't be like that, Kazuma-kun. It could be useful if you had some kind of disposable minions to open it for you." Izuku genuinely believed that even a highly specific quirk like Monetas could be helpful in combat and some rescue scenarios. "It may be a niche use, but if I learned anything at UA, it's that anything, no matter how specific, can be useful under the right circumstances," he said. Wiz was especially pleased that she had been defended, but she also appeared a little perplexed. Kazuma apologized and looked a little sheepish. Asking the green hero, "Thank you for that, Izuku-kun, but what's UA?" He had to learn how to refrain from speaking. "Well, it's only Wiz, so everything should be alright." He held up the university with the proper amount of respect, telling her, "UA is the academy that I went to. Its main goal was to raise the next generation of heroes." Wiz was a little surprised, but she settled down after a while. To say that Izuku was flattered would be an understatement. "That sounds interesting, Izuku-kun. It's strange that I never heard of it. You seem to hold the place with very high praise." "Well, if someone like you learned at such a place, then it must be great," it was said. That remark usually goes the other way, so this seemed strange to him. With a hint of bitterness, Izuku acknowledged, "Thank you, Wiz-san. To be honest, I never finished my schooling. In fact, I had to leave before my first year was over, so I'm not that impressive." Izuku was miss his former life. "Oh my, I'm sorry to hear that. Still, you're more than worthy of the title of hero. Honestly, I can't imagine what a graduate of this institution would look like if you're just a first year." Wiz went on to praise him. Despite his intense redness, Izuku made every effort to relax. He immediately caught Wiz's attention by asking, "Maybe I'll show you some other time, but for now I would like to ask for a specific item. Or a commission if it's possible." It made sense because commissioned items were uncommon and extremely lucrative. "If I have it in my shop, or if creating it is within my power, I would be more than happy to accept your patronage," she responded by bowing. Today, she might even break even. "Is there anything that you have that can help me regulate my mana, without limiting my mobility? Barring that, is there any healing item here that can directly convert mana into healing energy? And if not, then is there anything that you have or can produce that could withstand a force similar to an explosion spell or above?" Izuku asked at a rapid pace. The swirls in Wiz's eyes as she attempted to interpret Izuku's request were almost visible to the party. He quickly realized this and apologized before asking the same questions again, much more slowly this time and one at a time. In response to the first question, she gave him some hope by saying, "Oh okay, in order. No, there isn't an item that I have ever heard of that can do that. In theory, if you were to mold a piece of manatite into a gauntlet of some kind then maybe, but it would still be rather heavy and cumbersome." Alas, Izuku would have to adopt the backup plan. "There are a few items that can heal you in exchange for a direct burst of mana, but they are difficult to find and I can't make them myself. Healing magic isn't really my specialty." It made sense to Izuku. And finally, the only known material that could handle a full-powered explosion spell would be the armored hull of the destroyer. Other than that I have no idea," she concluded with a mournful voice. Unfortunately, it appears that she was not paid on that particular day. Izuku perked up and showed us her rather extensive collection of potions. "Sigh, it's fine. Those were long shots, I'll admit. Still, it would feel wrong to leave without buying anything, so. Do you happen to have any healing potions on hand? Or potions that help resist either magical attacks or specific elemental attacks?" she asked. Sadly, the majority of them were either too costly or just too risky to use. Izuku tries to reason with her, but she just lowers her head in shame. Wiz-san. Please be more thoughtful before you buy such things to sell. Please remember that this is a beginner's town, so most adventurers won't have that kind of money to spend. Plus a lot of these seem like more trouble than they're worth. For someone so intelligent and strong. When it comes to her business sense, or lack thereof, she is a bit of an airhead. Maybe we can help you with this sometime. Kazuma-kun, do you think that you could help out Wiz-san with her business during the winter while we have some downtime with quests? It would be a nice side venture for you. Plus you could use some of our ideas from back home and possibly sell them off with magical equivalents. Izuku made the suggestion, which caused him to take a Kazuma appeared interested in the concept. In addition, Izuku noticed a spooky smile on his face. He nodded a little too hastily, but Izuku chose to ignore it. Wiz appeared delighted to dampen the atmosphere. Izuku chuckles to himself. I can almost see the yen signs in his eyes. Izuku paid Wiz 40,000 iris for allowing Kazuma to learn her skill after the three of them had completed their business. It was impolite of them to come over and not buy anything after all, and the skill was more than useful enough to justify the payment, despite her attempts to refuse it. It was getting close to nightfall when they left the store. The three saw a big wagon with a cage containing a well-known blue-net as they were making their way down the street for a late dinner at the guild hall. The three of them ignored Aqua's foolish predicament because it was quite typical. It wasn't typical to see a blonde knight shouting, "Aqua-sama!" like a fool while attempting to enter the cage mentioned earlier and failing miserably. Izuku thought, I've seen enough. He went over and took Mitsurugi by the scarf, his face expressionless. He points to the goddess, who was slowly rising from her fetal position, and says, Mitsurugi-san, what have I told you about causing a scene? Please step away from the cage. It's obvious that Aqua-san doesn't want to deal with you right now. He practically spat in Izuku's face as he yelled, You again? What have you done with Aqua-sama? It's obvious that she's distraught, and why is she in a cage? In fact, why is she even here? The green hero stepped back a little and described the mission she was on. He then moved closer, whispering the reason Aqua had initially entered the mortal world. It goes without saying that Mitsurugi was furious, and not at Izuku. Kazuma refused to listen to the blonde swordsman's demands, saying, I demand that you free Aqua-sama at once. She deserves better than this. Kazuma defended himself before being raised by his shirt, saying, The hell? Why are you asking me to do that? She chose to go into that cage herself. I had nothing to do with it. At that moment, Izuku made the decision to step in, but darkness was quicker. She said in a fierce voice, That's enough out of you. This is the second time that you've overstepped your bounds with my party. If you don't stop now, I'll make you regret it. You can talk all you want about her hobbies, but darkness would stand up for her friends when it came to it. Lowly, Mitsurugi said, Tisk, another adventurer in green who needs women to defend him. Are you two brothers or something? I thought that was a bit of a stretch. How sexist is that? The expanding crowd gave Kazuma a few startled looks as she clarified, I know I call him Izuku-ni and all, but that's just a term of endearment. We aren't related by blood. Although Izuku was a brother in arms, which is the closest thing you can get to a blood brother, Kazuma thought. I guess we do look a little similar, but I didn't think the people thought of us as brothers. A girl in the crowd said, So the story of the light and dark princes was just a rumor. With a dejected tone. I guess it was too good to be true, but they were just so close to each other. The story of what now? Close. Naturally, since we are fellow humans and partygoers, we must remain united. Izuku's eyes widened, and Kazuma choked on his own saliva. Wait, if they aren't brothers then? Does that mean they're lovers? That would explain why Izuku-sama never accepted any of our advances. We're not gay. With faces as green as their eyes, they both scream out simultaneously. Izuku shouted, And what advances? I thought you were all just being nice. Kazuma glared at him, and the women in the crowd deadpanned. He exclaimed, That's it, you're getting a girlfriend. I won't allow any more rumors about us to spread. Izuku blushed a little and opened his mouth to reply, but Mitsurugi, who was still present for some reason, cut him off. Stop ignoring me, shouted Mitsurugi. Naturally, Kazuma would not do such a stupid thing. Listen, Kazuma Sato. I challenge you to a duel. If I win, then you will turn Aqua-sama over to me. If you win, I'll fulfill one request. After yelling, I'm in. Here I go, he swiftly drew his short sword and charged at Mitsurugi, surprising the swordsman and stealing his magic sword. Mitsurugi was rendered unconscious after receiving a single blow to the head. Once more. Before we arrived, this was the most formidable explorer in the town. Kazuma asked himself, genuinely perplexed. The fight went even faster than he had anticipated. The statement, "Holy crap, Kazuma-san beat Mitsurugi-sama in a single hit," made Kazuma appear almost arrogant. After that, he lost the arrogant expression and replaced it with a displeased frown. "Wow, I thought he was just hanging off of Izuku-sama's coattails, but he's really strong too," he said. An older woman with a cunning expression on her face remarked. "That fight was a bit underhanded though. I guess he really is the Dark Prince in the group." Once more, what is this called? Izuku smiled slightly and thought to himself, "I think it's karma. I make the decision to leave Kazuma alone, along with the other members of the group." Izuku had a productive day today and planned to begin the side project he had been meaning to work on for some time tomorrow. Once the second Mitsurugi incident was over, the group made the decision to return to the guild to receive Aqua's well-deserved reward. Because she was so traumatized, Izuku decided it would be okay if she chose the furniture for the house, which naturally improved her mood almost immediately. While there, they also picked up Luna, inviting her to come over so Izuku could tell her about All Might. All he could hope was that he wouldn't make a mistake. It was obvious that Luna found the mansion impressive. "So big," she cried, gazing at our house with wide eyes. She had never stayed overnight at a place this size before. "I have made some very important friends, haven't I?" Luna pondered in her mind. If only she were aware. Happy that one of her friends chose to come visit, Megaman continued. "I had the same reaction." Luna, the endearing guild member who was acting as Megaman's big sister, was good friends with the majority of the girls in the party. Izuku thanked her, and the others became even more excited when he said they would get to see the man himself, though they were unsure of how the Green Archwizard would do it. "Thank you for the praise. We just got it a few days ago, so it's not quite furnished yet, but we should be able to buy some by tomorrow. Anyway, let's head inside. I'll be able to tell you about All Might there. This will be the first time that the others have actually seen him too, except for Arisville-chan. All of them should enjoy this. Additionally, it will assist me in bringing the idea of advanced technology to the world." What would happen if I showed them the video of one of his fights? Izuku asked himself. This time, they all had dinner at the mansion, and Izuku made katsudon, his personal favorite dish, for everyone. The others appeared to enjoy it, but Izuku could have avoided their famished looks while they observed him cooking. He was moving as quickly as he could. For convenience in the preparation of specialty foods, Izuku even transformed some of the bigger boulders outside into contemporary appliances. Now they had a stove, refrigerator, and even a dishwasher. Izuku invented an electric generator that powered everything. Much obliged, Internet-sama. With just a series of carbon atoms encircled by hydrogen, the fuel was nearly too simple to create. Luna questioned Izuku, who appeared to be skilled in using each of the magic items. "What are all of these magic items you have? I've never seen them before and they look so useful." In response, he said that he made them himself, which wasn't entirely false. Izuku couldn't exactly tell her that he was from another world, but he felt a little bad about it. The group of friends sat down in a semicircle so that everyone could see the tablet after they had finished eating. The others were able to witness All Might in all his muscular splendor after Izuku looked up images of him. Kazuma summarized his muscular physique by saying, "Holy shit. Does that guy put muscle milk in his Cheerios or something?" With those things, the man appeared capable of turning coal into diamond. Izuku wouldn't normally consider disclosing All Might's true form to anyone, but being in a different world makes a good excuse. Hey, you'd think that, but that's just his muscle form. His true form leaves him as a lanky, almost skeletal man. Luna questioned the person who knew him the best. "Well, he certainly looks like he earned that name. How do you know him anyway? Is he famous or something from where you come from, Izuku-kun?" With a radiant smile, Izuku started to tell her about All Might and his occupation. He said, somewhat dejectedly, "He's basically my country's greatest hero, but he's also my mentor. Or former mentor, I guess." The man was like a father to him, and it's unfortunate that he would likely never be able to see him again. "He's your mentor. Does that mean that you two have fought alongside each other before? You're already so strong, Izuku-kun. I can't imagine how strong this All Might guy is." Megaman was ecstatic, now that he considered it. Izuku said, "I might actually be able to show you guys one of our team-ups. Give me a minute. I gotta check to see if they saved the footage somewhere." Luna continued to stare at him in wonder as he searched for a particular video, likely due to the tablet's practicality. To her, it likely appeared to be another powerful magic item or something. In any case, Izuku found what he was looking for after visiting the official Island website. Here it is. The attack on Island that happened a few weeks before I came here. All Might, my classmates, and I did our best to defeat the villain that caused it all. The fight itself was pretty big, so I'm not surprised that they saved the footage. Here, watch, Izuku said with a bit of joy. To be honest, Izuku discovered that he fought alongside All Might after a few days of allowing the adrenaline and fatigue from that day to subside. It was amazing and a major source of pride for Izuku. In the video, All Might was seen being impaled by multiple scrap metal spears after being crushed by tons of metal debris. As Izuku charged in to demolish her uncle's metal prison, Melissa called out for him. Worried about what kind of enemy could inflict such damage on her strong friend, Darkness remarked, "Izuku-kun, you're bleeding. This was a really dangerous fight if both you and All Might took so much damage." Was she red in the face? The Belzerg natives were perplexed by the conversation between All Might and Izuku, but fortunately Kazuma translated, stating that it was the language of our homeland. The group was caught off guard as the two heroes charged in at full speed. After the fight, Luna exclaimed, "Wow, I didn't know you were so fast, Izuku-kun. I can barely see you move here, and All Might-san is just as fast." Bakugo and Todoroki prevented the two heroes on screen from being struck by a flurry of metal projectiles and pillars. Enticed by Kachan's explosive idiosyncrasy, Megaman exclaimed, "Hey, that guy can use explosions too. It's like that thing you did against the blonde idiot the first time." Izuku should have anticipated her attraction to it. With a faint undertone of hero worship still in his voice, Izuku tells her, "Yeah, I actually used Kachan's power as a baseline for that. His sweat is explosive and he can detonate it at will. He's also a fighting genius in general." Regardless of what transpired, Bakugo was still more than worthy of being referred to as a powerful hero. Aqua inquired curiously, "What about the ice user?" She was intrigued by the frozen portion of her native element. The fact that the user was a shirtless badass who resembled Prince Zuko had no bearing on the fact that it was uncommon to see a human being use so much of it with such skill. "That's Todoroki-kun. He can control fire and ice, but he prefers his right side. They're both friends and former classmates of mine. I also consider them my rivals, even if Kachan would never admit it." Izuku thought about that last sentence privately. Returning to the fight, it was clear how much more powerful Izuku was there than the party perceived him to be. "Izuku-kun, why are you so much stronger in this fight compared to normal?" Yun responded. "It's because of that gauntlet that I was wearing. It allowed me to safely use my powers at around 30% without any drawbacks. Sadly, it can't handle any more than 3 of my punches at 100% before it breaks," he clarified, but Luna remained interested. Izuku grinned and recalled his new friend with fondness as she asked, "Izuku-kun, did you create that weapon too? If so, why haven't you made another one?" Because of the chaos that followed the island incident, they never really got to know one another well. "I didn't create that. Remember that blonde girl from the beginning? Her name is Melissa Shield. She's a genius inventor who created the full gauntlet. She gave it to me as a gift, and as you can see, it saved me more than once that day," he replied with a grin on his face. After exchanging glances, the girls agreed to put that matter off for later. 30%, 100%, what are you, some kinda anime character? If you have to limit yourself, then what percentage do you usually use?" Kazuma responded. What came next? 1,000,000%? Was he going to do that friendship power thing too? "I use around 5% in a fight. It's what got me all of those high physical stats on my guild card. I could probably go a bit higher now though, since my body has gotten so much stronger from all the leveling up," Izuku responded. Later on, he ought to put that to the test. Kazuma rubbed his chin slightly and joked, "Damn, if that lighting armor you have is you at 5%. I don't even want to know what a 100% attack from you feels like." Izuku may have gone overboard during one of their spars. At the height of the battle, All Might and Izuku were leaping into the air and getting ready to use their double Detroit smash to end it. Izuku paused after the fight to savor the memory of my greatest triumph for a little while longer. All Might and his former self executed a combo attack that left the others stunned. Seeing it from a third-person viewpoint was pretty epic, so Izuku wasn't blaming them. Luna exclaimed, "I must say, Izuku-kun, you're even more impressive than I thought. If you ever recreate that gauntlet, I have no doubt that you will be this world's greatest hero," with enthusiasm and sincerity. The compliment made Izuku flush, and he smiled broadly at her. She had moved closer and kissed him before he even realized it. Izuku began to splutter wildly, trying to come up with a response that wasn't a full-blown spaz fit. Iris' amusing smirk was the last thing he saw before going unconscious, as she and Megaman, for some reason, were imitating Luna. Deku. X is no longer functional. Error. Error. Izuku's world went dark, and the last thing he heard before passing out was Kazuma saying, "Lucky bastard. Female contact overload, trying to reboot." Reboot failed, emergency shutdown initiated. Gentle. When Izuku awoke from his unexpected nap, that was the first sensation he experienced. I really need to exercise more self-control. It really was. Succubi, vampires, demons in general, etc. Being weak to attractive women is a fatal flaw in a fantasy world like this. Just as vital as mental and physical prowess was emotional fortitude. A voice from too close to Izuku's ear said, "You're not wrong, Goshujin-sama." His heart stopped when he opened one eye and saw something. Literally. To restart everything, he had to use one for all. Beside him, Iris lay down. However, that wasn't the best or worst aspect. Is she dressed like a fucking maid? Izuku had to really control his muttering when a voice teased, "Indeed she is. Do you like what you see? Why was Izuku's pillow so warm, and this couldn't be real? And relocating?" Izuku looked up this time, and sapphire eyes met green ones. "Gee, good morning, Gee Goshujin-sama. Do you enjoy your morning wake-up?" Darkness spoke softly and tremblingly, blushing as she did her best to portray the role. Izuku now did what any hormonal, inexperienced, introverted teen would do in this circumstance. He started to freak out and try to get out of bed. In his panic, he even kicked Darkness in the stomach with a one-for-all powered leg, but given her durability, it felt like a harmless jab. "You know exactly how I like it, Izuku-kun." She acted out of character as she struggled to catch her breath, but Izuku ignored her, which regrettably made her even more excited. Suddenly, the bedroom door opened, and the two lowly archmages, still in their pajamas, entered. "It's not what it appears to be," Izuku shouted in an attempt to conceal his embarrassment from them, as all of this stimulation was negatively affecting his one and only weapon. "Izuku-kun, I believed you to be superior to this. In addition to dragging Darkness-chan and poor Irisville-chan into your bed, you neglected to include us." In his panic, Izuku didn't notice the enormous smile on her face as she yelled out in outrage, so he just assumed the doggy's position and began pleading for forgiveness. "We're too young for you, is that right? Or do you simply find us unattractive?" Since she wasn't involved in any of this and no one believed she could tell a good lie, Yun said, her eyes welling with tears. "What? No, both of you are stunning. You all are, never would I imagine otherwise," Izuku shouted, forgetting that he had another issue to worry about, and attempted to comfort his friend by giving him a hug. However, Luna had woken up too, and even though she was dressed as a waitress, she entered the room to find Izuku hugging Yun at half-mast. Oh my, the rumors were true. Izuku broke down in tears. "What rumors, please, just tell me," he pleaded to himself. Luna blushed and asked Izuku a question that drove him over the edge, observing that Irisville and Darkness were both dressed as maids. "Do you think I could join too?" The green mage needed a cold bath after he had just about enough for today, so he rushed out of the room and went to the baths. Izuku joined him in the spacious bathtub, and Kazuma looked at him as if he had the same thought. "Izuku ni? You see, stressed?" he asked, and Izuku replied, "You're a lucky bastard, indeed," with a sigh. Izuku's eyes widened at the revelation, which explained far too much. "As for those rumors, most people in the city believe that the girls are all part of your harem," he clarified. "And people who don't. Apparently, they believe that we're either gay for one another or real brothers." They had nothing against homosexuals, but the idea of dating each other was just... No, at that, we both felt a little queasy. "Kazuma-kun, how about you? Are there any rumors circulating about you?" In an attempt to find some common ground, Izuku asked him. "Yes, our entire party has a great reputation, aside from the ones we share. The majority of people believe that we are a sophisticated group of influential people. Hell, some of them even believe that we are exiled members of our own nation's royal family." Izuku sighed at that one. It was too much. Being a noble was bad enough, but now people believed he was a disgraced prince. As sad as it sounded, Kazuma was the most trustworthy person he knew outside of Iris, so he needed advice badly. "Kazuma-kun, I need advice, badly." He could have phrased that better, but it will have to do. "Dude, I am not eligible for this shit. I died a virgin. Simply count your blessings and let things unfold organically, if I may say so. At this point, attempting to defend yourself is only going to cause problems. In reality, attempting to combat women and their emotions is generally suicide." Izuku acknowledged the more self-centered reasons behind his choice, but again, who could really blame him? That was surprisingly good advice. It's true that if Izuku tried to control things now, the girls might actually kill him for leading them on, even if it was mistaken. Plus I am a man who is being offered a relationship with several extremely beautiful, intelligent, and charming women. Who could refuse something like that? Izuku said. Kazuma looked perplexed, but wished his brother-in-arms luck anyhow. Izuku told him, "Thanks for that, Kazuma-kun. I'll be going now. I have some work to do for today on my own. If you guys want to go questing, go ahead without me." In the rear shed 3 hours later, looking at the public blueprints of Melissa Shield's masterpiece, Izuku muttered to himself, "I hope all of those compliments on my intelligence were right." The material was so exotic that it would require the best machinery to manufacture it, let alone a magical transmutation ability. "I'm not even going to pretend to understand how these nanomachines are supposed to work. I guess I won't be able to reproduce the wristband mode that the original had." Melissa was a true once-in-a-generation genius who worked hard to achieve this. He couldn't have done it without his two gifts. Izuku emerged from the shed with his newest piece of gear, an exact replica of the full gauntlet that looked more like a red medieval gauntlet than the original boxer wrapping style because it was stretched all the way to his shoulder. The most significant difference, though, was that he had 4 pieces of this armor, one for each limb. Needless to say, this greatly improved his combat skills, and the legs in particular looked a lot like the leg section of regular plate armor, but with a little more flexibility. Since the land surrounding the house was his property, Izuku made the decision to take them for a test drive. "Okay, let's start with 30% for now," he said, looking out towards a kilometer of empty land, and then he activated full cowling and started to move. It was difficult to describe the sensation of traveling about 6 times faster than before. "I guess this is how he felt when he really cut loose. I only needed to leap once and I already covered half of the distance," he recalled, recalling that All Might was known for moving so fast that he could cover several kilometers in a matter of seconds. It was not only significantly quicker than normal, but there was absolutely no strain on me. It must have been all of the level ups. He had grown so much stronger in the last month without even realizing it, so express farming was a little frightening. If I really pushed myself, I might be able to handle 50% as if it were my base 5%. With a smirk, Izuku said to himself, "But before that, maybe I should get into character." He returned to an empty mansion, assuming they had indeed gone to the guild hall, and made the decision to join them and share the good news. The party in guild hall. "Hey, Kazuma-kun, how is Izuku-kun doing?" Since he was the last to see the green-haired mage before they departed, Aqua asked her partner. "He mentioned working on a project at some point. Other than that, I don't know," Kazuma answered, equally perplexed as to why his honorary brother was taking so long. The adventurer's response was a squeaking door, and a green-haired figure who was familiar but dressed in a rather striking outfit entered. He was wearing his hero suit, which most of his party had only seen in pictures, but this was the first time they had seen it in person. And those pieces of armor, could they be? Luna also looked wide-eyed at them, the amazing piece of equipment and its effects still fresh in her memory. As for the rest of the guild, "You look like a true adventurer now, Izuku-sama, not like the uniform you wore earlier, which looked like it was military. In any case, what is that stuff composed of? Although it has a toughness to it, it also looks like fabric. And those pieces of armor don't look like any metal I've ever seen." Mohawk Bro asked the crucial questions. Izuku was a little taken aback but gave his best response. "Well, the actual costume was the one I used to wear to work. It can deflect the majority of bladed weapons and even soften punches and explosives because it is composed of a very lightweight and durable material. The armor is unique, though, because I made it myself. Actually, one of my close friends, Melissa, created the original concept and design, but I made this specific set myself," he said, faltering slightly. "You also work as a blacksmith. Do you have any limitations?" The rest of the guild appeared to concur with his sincere surprise as he asked. "A fucking noble, a multi-millionaire, an archmage, a brilliant inventor, a mathematician, a powerful warrior, and an archmage," he said in jest, but some people seemed to take it personally. "Really, dude, you keep making the rest of us regular guys feel inadequate. That's absurd. I'm not any better than you guys just because I can do all of these things. We're all fellow adventurers in my opinion." For whatever reason, that only made them feel worse. "Man, you're far too modest." Kazuma patted Izuku's back and said, "I know we've discussed this before, but please take pride in your work, bro. In addition, all of your representatives continue to show me respect through proxy, so if you can't believe in yourself, just believe in the me that believes in you." Immediately after, he whispered. Izuku thought thoughtfully. Old reference aside, he's not wrong. Humility is great and all, but All Might didn't get to where he was by putting himself down. After a while, he looked around, his eyes locked with Aris in darkness, and he approached them, whispering to them so the other members wouldn't hear. Izuku debated whether to include Megaman and Yun Yun as well, but they weren't involved in that whole fiasco, so Izuku decided to wait for confirmation on them. Luna would have to come later. Izuku still had things to do that kept him busy, and winter was coming, so he needed to get this out of his system before it became a problem. We need to talk in private later. They look a little worried at that, but ultimately agree. Izuku doubted they had much to work with after the massive purchase of the mansion and the surrounding land, especially given the spending habits of a certain goddess. This time, he spoke to my entire party about their financial situation. All right, everyone, the 150 million aris in bounty money would be lowered to 50,300,000 after all of our costs have been paid. How much did the furniture cost us, Aqua-chan? Izuku questioned their resident alcoholic, who was fortunately sober when he arrived. I discovered some incredibly opulent decor. Kazuma was not having any of it, though, and Aqua began, grinning, and it was at a great price, along with shipping and installation costs. Her smile faded a little as she said, 40 million aris in total. The other members all took a collective breath. You invested the equivalent of $400,000. On furnishings. That was our winter budget. Izuku yelled in obvious frustration. Great, now I have to bring in even more modern appliances to keep up with our dwindling budget. Izuku recovered as quickly as possible after saying, we can't afford firewood for the winter now, central heating it is. Aqua appeared even worse at this point. She knew the green mage wouldn't hold a grudge, which only made her feel worse. When using Aqua-chan's, due to overzealous purchases, we only have roughly 10 million aris left over for the winter. The budget will be a little tight because there are 6 of us living together, I won't lie. Thankfully, he tried to calm the rest of the party down by saying, I have my ways of making this work, just leave it to me. Fortunately, it worked because they knew their leader would never deceive them. He left no room for argument. She needed to learn not to betray his trust in this way again, and Aqua-chan. I said, my voice growing a little sinister. As punishment for abusing the budget, you will be helping out Wiz-san at her shop with Kazuma-kun. You are to follow their orders to the letter, for the rest of the month. If you do a good enough job, I'll shorten your time there, just promise me that you will never do this again. Izuku nods quickly and bows, but her voice softened a little at the end. Those blue eyes that cry are a deadly weapon. Izuku-kun, thank you. She seemed sincere when she said, I swear I won't do it again. Izuku then released her, and she and Kazuma left for the shop to begin the day's work with newfound energy. For the remainder of the day, let's go home. We need to finish a few things before the day ends. He said, receiving nods in return, but first he had to go ask Luna to come see us after her shift ended because she deserved to express her desires as well. As he mentally and emotionally readied himself for what lay ahead, Izuku thought to himself, today is going to be a busy day. I just hope that I can end it with nobody getting hurt. Just so you know, Izuku-kun, my father is going to send us a housewarming gift of fine wine and some crab. In addition, he expressed his desire to meet you in the future. Darkness told her leader, much to his delight. Given that Belzerg is landlocked and at war right now, crab is quite the delicacy. Well, her father is a duke, so it makes sense that he would like to meet his daughter's noble friend. That was a can of worms to be opened later. Later, I'll have to give him credit for that. I should probably tell you everything I intend to do as we make our way home. I've come up with a way to heat our house without using a lot of fuel, and it should be fairly simple for me to construct. Food is the only real issue with the budget that we have left, Izuku explained to them, and since they appeared to be paying attention, he went on. I could theoretically also fix that. We could have an almost endless supply of food thanks to my transmutation ability, but I'm not nearly as sure I can use it to create anything biological, much less edible. That solution is therefore off the table. He clarified the boundaries of his authority, and they readily agreed with that one as well. The plan is as follows. For the next few months, Kazuma-kun and Aqua-chan will be employed at Wiz's shop. Hopefully, we will have a steady flow of income flowing in every few days, but in the meantime, we must watch how much we spend. Is there anything I should know before we continue? Anything? Unknown factors would be detrimental, so he asked them. He needed as much information as possible, and accounting was a mundane but necessary skill when money was tight. Yun scowled and said it for Megumin, who appeared to be about to speak but stopped in the middle. Megumin-chan gives the majority of her money to her parents back in the village. Izuku-kun, don't worry, I can make up the difference if necessary, with conviction, she said, and Megumin gave her a conflicted expression, feeling both touched and betrayed by Yun's willingness to lend a hand. This causes Izuku's eyes to soften. That's okay, I get it. Don't stress over it too much. He could also use his transmutation to make gold, but that just screamed fraud, so he'd rather save that for last. And Yun Yun, please don't push yourself. This just means that we need to take a few more quests during the winter. Shortly after their conversation ended, they arrived at the mansion and were astonished to see multiple boxes of fresh crab outside the house. This must be the gift you mentioned, Darkness-chan. Your dad works quickly. This was unexpected, but not at all unwanted, Izuku cried. With their new appliances, the three of them started cooking them right away, making it much simpler and quicker than it would have been otherwise. They even wrapped the food in sets of aluminum foil that Izuku made for them. Before making his way to the spacious bathing area, Megaman declared, I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna take a bath early before eating. Yun Yun chose to accompany her, leaving Izuku with his alleged maids. He blushed at the thought, but he said, it's about time anyway, hopefully, I can power through this. All right. Izuku began the discussion with the most crucial question. Can someone tell me what happened in the morning? Aris smiled slightly and answered in a seductively mature manner. Did you enjoy it, Era Izuku-kun? Both my blush and my rebuttal appeared instantly. Aris-chan, I'm not feeling like doing this at the moment. I need a direct response from both of you. Izuku made it clear that this was not the time for teasing or false flags. Are you both interested in me as more than a friend, yes or no? This time, the girl blushed, but fortunately Darkness took the initiative to respond on their behalf. Why yes, we are. I'm sorry if what we did back then was too much, but... She stumbled a little as she spoke, so Aris chose to finish for her. We experimented with Izuku-kun's subtle approach. I will be brutally honest, though. You're denser than your gauntlets. It's not his fault that he had no experience with girls, she responded. I was afraid that you wouldn't get it without extreme measures. Izuku felt a little foolish. For the record, Yun Yun-chan and Megaman-chan share the same sentiments. Them too. This was becoming too complicated for Izuku's poor heart, Aris explained. They were supposed to be the little sister roles, but you went full Doggies mode before they could play their part. Ding dong, Izuku told them he would get the door, and when he opened it, he saw a startled Luna with her finger over the doorbell. Aunt Luna's here. Was he going to make it through this? Maybe, but it will most likely be his hardest battle to date. Greetings, Izuku-kun. Is this something else that was invented? She looked excited as she greeted me and asked, I imagine it's pretty useful for such a large home. Why did you want me to come over? Not that I don't appreciate it, in general, it's not like a waitress like me can go to such an opulent establishment. That wouldn't do. Luna-san, let me clarify that you are welcome here whether or not you were invited. With no room for debate, Izuku tells her, don't think of yourself as any less than a good friend of our group. Luna was a little surprised, but she gave him a hug in appreciation for the approval. Aris saw them as Izuku led her into the kitchen, and her eyes widened a little as she realized, so you brought Luna here too. She approached the two and turned to face Luna, saying, good on you, that will make this easier. She smiled broadly and said, he finally figured it out after our little performance in the morning, just so you know, I don't mind sharing with my good friends. Luna blushed deeply at being discovered. And Izuku-sama, are you okay with this? Do you want me? It was Izuku's turn to appear uneasy and anxious. Whether she was ready or not, being asked something like this was well outside of her comfort zone. She asked in a low, almost frightened voice. If you simply asked, I would never turn anyone away. To tell the truth, I have never experienced such a level of interest from a girl before. To be honest, I'm incredibly flattered and shocked that you would agree to share me so readily. Is that typical in this country? That part in particular was definitely unexpected. Is it truly that unexpected? Strong adventurers frequently have more than one partner. In Belzerg, in fact, it's encouraged because of the war's population decline. In response to Luna's explanation that nobility are also known to have multiple partners in general, he informed her that such relationships were illegal in his nation. All right. Are we now officially recognized? We all? Izuku asked them tremblingly, and they all readily consented. Aris decided kindly, we can take it slow if you want. Lord knows we've been patient enough before you figured it out. We can wait a few more weeks so that you can be comfortable. Izuku was not prepared for that kind of commitment so soon, so he thanked them profusely. Izuku excused himself as the girls emerged from the bath, stating that he needed some time to unwind. He was exhausted from creating his armor, and his emotions were all over the place. The Crimson Lawless appeared somewhat perplexed, but they were taken into a group chat with the older girls to talk about what had just transpired. Izuku sighed deeply as he sat down in the warm bath water. I needed this, I really needed this, he thought as his aching muscles relaxed. Using transmutation was exhausting in general, but doing it for 3 hours straight while attempting to understand some of the most complex technology he had ever seen was exhausting. Before he knew it, he had fallen asleep. POV shift. Kazuma, I'm happy you helped out back there, Aqua, even though I can't believe I'm saying this. He never imagined the day would come when their useless goddess would have more common sense than anyone else. Wiz-san is a nice person and all, but her business sense is abysmal, I said in a deadpan tone. Hikinit, I'll take that as a compliment. In fact, that dumb undead tried to purchase an exploding boomerang. Who does that? As they dragged their way towards the house, a heavenly scent hit their noses. That smell. That odorous scent. That odorous scent that odors. Aqua whispered softly, smelly. Aqua Baka. Stop quoting SpongeBob and open the door. I yelled, my mouth drooling. We were in the kitchen after one almost broken door, and the enthusiastic greetings we received felt wonderful. After a long day at work, we came home to a delicious meal and a group of attractive women, but sadly, none of them were mine. Not that I would ever try anything, as I respected Izuku too much to do that. Plus I would rather live, thank you very much. Strangely enough, Darkness was also absent, but Luna appeared to be joining us for dinner tonight, so the busty blonde quota was still met. I said, as much as it pains me to say, I need to change out of these clothes before I can eat. Aqua seemed to agree as she made her way to her own room. Izuku was already there and sound asleep when I got to the baths to change and unwind for a while. Man, he must have had a rough day. Usually he's full of energy even this late, I thought as I lay down beside him. My own exhaustion struck as the warm water helped me unwind, and I briefly closed my eyes. Third-person point of view precisely 1 second later. Why are they both here? Did I fall asleep? Is this the dream from the succubi? Kazuma thought in a slight panic as he looked around. A creaking door opened and 2 figures entered. Aqua was completely covered with a towel, so Darkness had to settle for only partial coverage because of her. But why? If this was a dream he shouldn't, but I only ordered an older sister archetype. Does the dream change along with my subconscious? He was shocked to see that Izuku was still there, but he didn't have time to consider the implications before the girls entered the bath, completely nude. Aqua was tipped in as well by Darkness, who was the first to notice, letting out a choked squeak of surprise and then falling to her knees with a meaty slap. Kazuma Baka. What are you doing here? She shouted, startling Izuku awake and jolting Kazuma out of his reverie. Wa, before realizing what was happening, he muttered aloud, Kazuma-kun, wa Darkness-chan. I thought I said. And Aqua-chan too. WH. His heart practically jumped out of his chest, sending his brain into complete panic mode. Didn't you two notice the clothes outside the bath chamber? Kazuma was still computing when he finished with a furious blush, and the girls looked pretty sheepish. Kazuma calmed down a little and went with the flow, concluding that this situation was just too crazy to be anything other than a dream. Yo. Izuku stared at him in disbelief and a sense of betrayal as his friend pulled a manetta and pulled him along with it. If you two want to join us, I wouldn't mind, he said in the smoothest voice he could manage. What? What makes us want to accompany you? Hikini perverted. Darkness appeared a little uncertain, but Aqua screamed in utter disbelief at Kazuma's boldness. Shyly, she said, I wouldn't mind if it was with Izuku-kun, but with Kazuma-kun and Aqua-chan too. Kazuma appeared somewhat arrogant, and their reactions confirmed his suspicion that it was a dream. Listen, you two, I don't know what's going on with Kazuma-kun, but you are free to do whatever you want, Izuku said. I've been in long enough so I can leave, as he slowly emerged from the water. However, it appeared that the gods of fate were playing tricks on him because he slipped halfway out of the room before hitting the cold stone. Fortunately, something soft broke his fall. Hey! Izuku pulled a harem protagonist and landed directly on her chest, causing her to scream in a surprisingly girly way. Despite his best efforts to apologize, Kazuma simply got up and went to Aqua. Izuku-ni appears to be quite busy. Are you certain you don't want to join us, Aqua-chan? As Aqua took her turn to splutter in shame, he said, I'll even wash your back as a thank you for earlier today. He moved closer and began to put his hands around her waist, gradually drawing her in for a full body hug. The two girls took a little longer to act, and Kazuma realized how fucked he was. Fortunately for Aqua's remaining innocence, a high-pitched scream came from outside the door, probably from Yun-Yun or Megaman. Izuku wasted no time and ran out of the bath at full speed. What happened when I heard a scream? When Izuku saw that Megaman, Yun-Yun, Aris, and Luna were all together and unharmed, he became a little more at ease. However, he became perplexed when he saw the small, white-haired girl kneeling in a magic circle. Izuku-kun. You're just wearing a towel, But why? While everyone else, including the new girl, was staring at him with their jaws on the ground, Luna asked in disbelief. I apologize. For whatever reason, Kazuma-kun, Aqua-chan, and Darkness-chan appeared while I was taking a bath, and I heard a scream and came running. When Izuku's words rapidly became incomprehensible, he somehow managed to use one for all on his lips. Izuku-kun. Go more slowly. Izuku complied with Arisa's request to explain it again, more slowly this time. By the time he finished, Kazuma, Aqua, and Darkness had come to see the succubus, still wrapped in towels. Aha! I knew it was a good idea to put those anti-demon wards all over the house. Kazuma-kun must have been mind-controlled by her to do all of those daring and terrible things. With a proud puff of her chest, Aqua exclaimed. After a moment of surprise, Kazuma's face squared off as she rolled with it. Izuku was still perplexed by the situation, but based on Aqua's explanation, this girl was a demon, a succubus, judging by the appearance of it. The situation made no sense, and Kazuma acted fairly lucid the entire time, as if he knew exactly what was happening, and he also got over his surprise of her existence fairly quickly. I knew that I would encounter one eventually, but so soon. But I don't think I have the full story from this. If she was captured from the beginning, then how would she be able to control Kazuma-kun? Izuku thought to himself. Well, it doesn't matter anymore. I'll just use my strongest anti-demon spell to hit this demon scum and... Aqua started to say before Kazuma walked forward and stepped in between his party and the succubus. Oh no. She is still in charge of Kazuma-kun. You must resist it. Despite her adorable appearance, Kazuma-kun is her enemy. With her fists raised, Megaman said, "Don't make us have to do this." Izuku thought, wait, she's a mage. Why is she raising her fists as if she could fight Kazuma-kun in melee? In all likelihood, only Aqua, Aris, and I could defeat Kazuma in close quarters. Even then, Aris would require the element of surprise, Darkness's poor aim would make her a mere sandbag, and Aqua's raw power was outmatched by Kazuma's technique thanks to Izuku's training. Izuku made up his mind that the succubus would leave unharmed, saying, "Girls, stay behind me and Aqua-chan. I could just end this now, but I want the full story first. That succubus looks far too guilty for this to be a normal attack. Kazuma-kun is extremely dangerous. Non-melee fighters shouldn't risk facing him because I've trained him to take down opponents with a single blow." Izuku shouted out the plan, and they didn't even question it because they were so accustomed to him being in charge. "I'll defend you all while Aqua goes in first." "Alright, Izuku-kun. I'll save Kazuma-kun and prove to this demon why it's not a good idea to meddle with the goddess friends." To the surprise and dismay of the others, she jumped forward with a quick but predictable and awkward punch, which Kazuma easily deflected and used the judo throw he had learned from Izuku to take Aqua down. In the meantime, he rubbed off a piece of the magic circle, which caused the succubus to fly away. "Aqua-chan, I did warn you to exercise caution. Fortunately, Kazuma-kun appears to have regained consciousness. I would like to speak with him briefly if that is okay with you." Before he pulled Kazuma to his room, Izuku remarked hastily, "I'm sure he needs a familiar face to get him through what just happened." "Kazuma-kun. You will describe the events in detail to me. I'll decide what to do after you're done, so don't even try to lie to me." With his ultimatum in hand, Kazuma began to perspire heavily, realizing that this was not going to work out well for him. "If you do lie to me, I will tell the girls what I think happened and you will have to deal with the consequences on your own." Izuku cornered Kazuma after the succubus incident and made him explain what had transpired. Fortunately, he provided his information in an open manner. It turned out to be nothing more than a major misunderstanding and a ridiculous amount of bad luck. Izuku began, looking down at Kazuma, who was in full Dogiza mode. "So let me get this straight. A group of succubi lives in Axel, and they have a symbiotic relationship with the men here. They provide lewd dreams in exchange for life energy from the buyer, and you ordered one earlier today. Am I missing anything?" he murmured. Kazuma sounded sincere when he said, "No, Izuku ni-sama, I apologize for causing you any trouble." Izuku sighed and gave him a shoulder pat. It was true that it was better to have the men and succubi deal with their problems in a controlled setting rather than risk having them do the same thing carelessly. "Look, you technically did nothing wrong. That business that they have is legal and beneficial compared to having them suck out souls with no regulation whatsoever. Furthermore, Kazuma had no justification for dating a goddess of luck. I'm just surprised honestly. I thought you were supposed to have a luck stat almost as high as my own. How did something like this even happen?" At that, Kazuma moaned aloud. Izuku slapped him across the head and chastised him for the insult to Aqua. "I blame that useless goddess. Her minimal luck stat must be corrupting mine, Izuku said. But he did have a point. It made sense that their stats might have a direct impact on one another because those two behaved like an elderly married couple half the time. Furthermore, Izuku was certain that Aris' good fortune played a role. After learning what had happened, she laughed for hours. I suppose there are benefits to being the goddess of luck. You're always entertained. Regardless of your intentions, what you did with Aqua and Darkness was wrong. I'm willing to keep this whole thing secret since you were just unlucky, but you still need to make it up to them somehow. Treat them to lunch or something. I don't expect you to up and tell them the truth, but giving them something nice shouldn't be beyond you, right? He readily agreed, but he messed up and truly regretted what he had done. I suppose Darkness wasn't too bothered by it. After all, it makes sense that she is Darkness. Additionally, Aqua wasn't as angry as I had anticipated for some reason. When I finally went to bed and let sleep take me, Izuku thought to himself, hopefully, this will all blow over by morning. I hope it won't be as hectic tomorrow. The gravesite of the mansion the next day, Darkness apologized to him for what had happened the previous evening, saying, I truly apologize for not noticing the sign you put up, Izuku-kun. Aqua-chan was distracting me before we went in. Okay, she was right, but Izuku assumed that everyone was somehow responsible. If he hadn't stumbled so much, he could have prevented it from getting as bad as it did. Both in a literal and symbolic sense. After responding, Izuku looked at her attire. It's okay, Darkness-chan, mistakes were made on all accounts back then. It was honestly just a huge case of bad luck. I should have noticed that Kazuma-kun was acting strangely and put a stop to it. Why are you in that secretary's outfit, Darkness-chan? It even had the appearance of contemporary attire. Was it made popular by a previous reincarnate? She looked shocked and flushed. That's smart actually, more avenues to generate income, I guess. Indeed, the creator took that turn. Secretary. This is a high-grade noble's outfit. Only the most well-off can even dream of having one, the creator said. She deflates when she says, hate to break it to you, Darkness-chan, but outfits like that are pretty common among businesswomen in my world. She and the other nobles truly believed that it was a unique upper-class uniform. Additionally, the one she's wearing is of rather poor quality. Izuku was about to offer to make her address himself when the town alarm went off once more. I probably shouldn't tell her that. Modern clothes would be difficult for anyone from this world to replicate. There is an urgent situation. Warning. Destroyer. Warning. Destroyer. Please leave the town immediately. Adventurers in good physical condition, please report to the Guildhall. Since a demon general was involved the only other time this occurred, it must be serious. As she emerged from her astonishment, Izuku asked, Hey Darkness-chan, what exactly is a destroyer? After saying, there is no time to explain, Izuku-kun. We need to prepare our equipment and go to the Guildhall immediately. She hurried to her room. Izuku concluded that if the fear in Darkness' voice was any indication, he ought to follow suit. He made his way to the shed and put on everything he had, including his new equipment. They ought to be useful. After going at around 20% and high into the air to make sure he didn't harm the surroundings, I was the first to reach the Guildhall. Yes, he was performing in all might and making huge, fast leaps across the city. Thank you, Melissa. When he arrived, Luna was in complete panic until she saw him. I'll never forget you for creating something that could let me experience this. She gripped his legs and begged, Izuku-kun, tell me you can stop the destroyer. You have to. The idea of the destroyer destroying her home nearly brought tears to her eyes. She seemed to relax after hearing the words, Luna-chan. Calm down, now please, tell me exactly what a destroyer is. I'll try my best from there, regardless of what it is. I promise to keep the townspeople safe. She took a few deep breaths before describing the mobile fortress destroyer. Oh, so it's just a superweapon. Izuku offered a casual summary. The green mage gave an explanation after the others expressed surprise at his calm demeanor. Back where I'm from we get these things on a monthly basis. Every bozo with an intelligence enhancement quirk or a quirkless villain who got lucky with funding makes at least one of these. He informs them by waving his hand in dismissal. The problem with superweapons is that their creators are usually smarter than them. According to what they told me, this thing was a huge metal spider with multiple point defense laser weapons on the top and bottom of the machine, a magic barrier surrounding it, and enough strength to topple big buildings. It's a pretty straightforward setup, and whoever created it was most likely aiming for style points. They pointed to the northeast, and Izuku asked, do you know what direction it's coming from? Yes, he probably ought to have been more explicit. Izuku nods and explains his plan after Luna tells him, it will be here in about an hour and a half. It runs faster than any horse, so it is difficult to scout. To be honest, he didn't even need to consider this because of the numbers. Looking at a map of the town, Izuku said, "Okay, please set up the defenses in these key points. Aqua-chan should be at the center wall, preparing a break spell. That should be enough to get through its barrier. On the two adjacent towers, there should be Megumin-chan, Yun-Yun-chan, and/or Wiz-san. They will provide the firepower needed to take it down after the barrier is broken." He provided them with a rough sketch. With this around, they appeared to realize how well prepared the city was. After seeing the plan, a red-haired waitress remarked, "Wow, Izuku-sama. With your team around, nothing short of an army could really harm the city, huh?" That made Izuku rub the back of his head. The guild stared at Izuku bewilderedly. "My friends are pretty amazing, huh? Anyway, this plan is assuming that it even reaches us." It was time to finally stress test his new equipment, so he tells them, "I'll scout ahead and intercept it on its way. If I can, I'll take it down before it can even get close to the city, but if I fail, I'll head back and provide support for the plan." Odd looks ensue, and they continue for a lot longer than Izuku felt comfortable. He gave them a clumsy farewell wave and made his way to the northeast gate. He needed to get to work. He accelerated to 40% of his power once he was outside the walls. He might be able to climb higher, but by then it would start to hurt and seriously deplete his energy. Furthermore, he arrived at the metal monstrosity in less than 10 minutes at this rate of speed. Whoever created this was making an excessive effort to be edgy. A gigantic spider, I mean? Really? From the plateau he was standing on, Izuku observed it getting ready to fire a laser. For some reason, it attempted to break up a bird. He screamed, "Birdie no!" and lunged at the bird, trying to save it. He had to use his gauntlet to block the laser, but he was able to catch it before it hit. Even though the laser heated his gauntlet considerably and was powerful enough to push him back a considerable distance, he managed to deflect it back, only to have the destroyer's magic barrier completely block it. The bird must have been exhausted after everything, because after Izuku released it, it chose to sit on the ground and take a short nap. Izuku turned to face the robot as it went on without bothering to attack them once more. Before glancing at the third leg on its right side and getting ready, he muttered, "It must only attack things that are close to it." Izuku whispered, "Let's see just how durable you are, big guy," and leapt for the leg. He got a 100% smash ready and launched it. Detroit smash. The metal screamed and twisted at a strange angle, likely rendering that leg useless. The robot stopped walking and detached that leg right away, then quickly produced another one, as if it recognized this. Izuku yelled, "Magic Canceller," and pointed his open palm at the object, saying, "So much for that idea. Now for the magic barrier. I haven't gotten any time to test this out, but I hope it works." He poured all of his mana into his one spell, and a bright light came out of his hands, stopping the robot's movements for a few seconds before it sadly continued moving. After finishing his experiment, he made the decision to return to the town. So it is powered by magic. Whatever is doing this must be extremely powerful and long-lived. Like a small nuclear reactor that provides constant power over the centuries, his journey wasn't a complete bust. Izuku saw that everyone was already at the gate and in their proper positions on his way back. Aqua stood in the center, with Wiz and Megumin guarding the towers. For some reason, they were also applauding him. "Kikaku Dori, I need to stop hanging out with Kazuma-kun so much." It became louder the closer Izuku got, so he made the decision to keep his sanity intact and went straight to Kazuma's location. Izuku said, "Explain." Kazuma, who was accustomed to this song and dance, responded right away. "You know that bird that you saved? It was a familiar that the guild used to watch the destroyer on its way here." "Oh, no. Please, not again. They saw your little power play back there and it gave them some confidence, along with how Luna told them that you came up with a plan to beat that thing before they could even arrive at the hull." He was grinning. Izuku at least lifted the spirits of the others. And this time, he didn't even manage to win over another girl. By the by, the girl that owned that bird familiar wanted to thank you for saving it, personally. Izuku gave in. Before realizing how severely she was shaking, he went over to Wiz and gave her some mana potions in case something went wrong. He then did the same for Megumin. She whipped her head back when he put a hand on her shoulder. "Megumin-chan. It's okay, the plan will work. I already confirmed that this thing can be beaten with a hard enough hit. And there are few things stronger than an explosion spell from the Crimson Demon Clan's greatest mage, EH. That certainly set her on fire. This motivational speech thing may be improving on him." The town wall is several hundred meters away. Kazuma began to say, "Darkness-san, I know you like this kind of stuff and all, but shouldn't you be with the rest of us while we—" But Darkness cut him off. "I can understand why you would think that, given how I act. But this is something far deeper. It is my duty and my honor to protect these people, and this land. The arrogance of a nobleman? Kazuma knew that was at least partially true, but he would still like to think that. It's undeniable that darkness also wanted to do this for its own sake. She posed the rhetorical question, do you really think that I would forsake duty and honor for the sake of pleasure? Yes, absolutely, was Kazuma's flawless response. Darkness stumbled and began to breathe heavily. Izuku thought to himself, and this is my girlfriend now, he would have to adjust to this eventually. Kazuma questioned, I understand that you're aiming for the knight in shining armor cliché, but why this location specifically? Darkness clarified that Izuku's father was the noble lord who bestowed his title. Kazuma exclaimed in obvious shock, what? You're a rich girl. He really shouldn't have been, as Darkness was known for using extremely valuable and uncommon equipment. The full steel plate armor she wore allowed her sword to withstand multiple blows from Verdia's magical greatsword. They both sigh, Darkness in disappointment and Kazuma in relief, as Izuku assures them, you guys don't have to worry, I'm fairly certain that my plan should work, if everything goes well then that thing won't even get within a kilometer of the city. After half an hour, okay Aqua-chan, I'll use magic canceller on it the moment that you break the shield, that should shut down its internal systems too, at least hopefully. From there Megaman-chan and Wiz-chan should be able to finish it off. She smiles and gets her staff ready in advance. As the monstrosity got closer to the town, the ground started to tremble. Izuku hurried over and yelled as soon as it emerged over the horizon. Start casting the spell in 40 seconds. He arrived at the robot in less than 50 seconds while moving at full speed. Izuku inhaled deeply and readied his spell as he saw Aqua's sacred spell break begin to hurtle toward him. The barrier did its job when the holy magic beam struck it. It held up for a good 30 seconds, to the credit of the barriers. It did eventually fall apart, leaving the destroyer totally exposed. When Izuku used my magic canceller, the device shut down entirely. He could likely continue for several minutes before running out of mana because the drain was significantly lower this time. But he didn't have to wait long because the machine was hit by 2 explosion spells. Then another. Then another. Stop. 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 Megaman. It's dead already. The cockpit was blown wide open due to the severe damage. The machine's interior, including a tiny, pulsing ball that resembled a miniature sun, was actually fully visible. Izuku sighed with relief as he released his spell. It was done. Whoa, I just raised a flag. Critical damage detected. Self-destruct protocol initiated. I guess I should have known, so screw me. Izuku turned back to face the city. These things always have the option to self-destruct. Even though it was quite a distance, allowing this to explode so close would still be risky. They were all cheering, not realizing the impending explosion, when Izuku made the decision to run back towards the city. Izuku disregarded it and rushed up to Wiz. She was a little worn out from the explosion spell and was staring at Megaman in fright following the fast-paced explosion spells she had used. Izuku briefs her, grabs her, and rushes towards Yun, telling her the same thing before rushing off again, both women in his arms as they approach the destroyer. Wiz-san, things went wrong. The destroyer is going to explode and I need someone that can cast teleport. You and Yun need to come with me, he says. Unfortunately, Wiz didn't have enough mana to teleport it, and Yun could only teleport to her village. A coronatite orb, that's probably what powered the destroyer for so long. Teleporting it somewhere else should stop the explosion. Good call Izuku-kun. As Wiz drank Izuku's magical liquid, he went to remove Yun from the blast radius. Wiz, drink one of those potions I gave you. If that doesn't work, it should give you enough mana for one teleport. If not, I have a plan B, but I will be out of commission afterward, just in case. Izuku saw that steam was escaping from the robot's remains as I was walking back. He accelerated his pace and saw Wiz standing outside the destroyer. She cautioned the green hero, who appeared resigned to his fate, Izuku-kun. It started to glow a dangerous white color, so I teleported it away to a random area, but now it's steaming. If this keeps going it will still explode and the firestorm might destroy the city. She looked perplexed as the green mage approached the steaming fortress. Sigh. This is going to suck for me, but I guess it's time for plan B. Just do me a favor and carry me back to the city after I do this. Izuku tells her. As he used something that, in normal circumstances, would have left him permanently disabled, if not killed me outright, his entire body burst into emerald lighting. Fortunately, he had a number of safety nets at his disposal. Before I could pull up with all my strength, he grabbed one end of the destroyer from below and let out his loudest yell. Everything. Tokyo table flips at a rate of 1,000,000%. The destroyer made a brief creaking sound before being launched into the air and landing in a local wasteland thousands of feet away. Izuku suffered broken arms, legs, a crushed spine that nearly turned to dust, broken ribs, and, to top it all off, the luxury of feeling every bit of the pain because none of his nerve endings were impacted. Izuku-kun. I'll take you straight to Aqua-sama, but I don't know how you did that. That is not how human spines should bend. Wiz's last words before embracing the abyss were, I hope that Coronatite wasn't transported anywhere important. He cried out in alarm as Izuku passed out in her arms because the pain was too great and he desperately wanted to sleep. Izuku was very much thinking about joining the Axis cult, and he should worship anyone who could relieve the unbearable pain he was going through. Wow, Izuku-kun. You were able to break your broken bone record. Boddum TSS. Arisa's best goddess, never mind. Thank you Aqua-chan. I was pretty much at death's doors there, Izuku said, still in a daze from what had happened earlier, but first things first. I should thank Yun Yun later. If she hadn't teleported us back, I might have died again. How did the destroyer end up? I was in too much pain to see the consequences, but I did my best to toss it in a safe direction. Hopefully, he didn't crush some poor farmer or something. Oh, don't worry, you were incredible. Although I was aware of your strength, your actions back there made me think of that ancient half-breed Heracles. Being compared to a real god of strength was, well, good for one's pride. Izuku's consciousness began to return in earnest at that point, and he became aware of how the other adventurers who had given him time to recover were beginning to swarm around him once more, shouting their ecstatic thank yous and compliments while Izuku stood there, too exhausted to flee as he usually did. To his astonishment, their applause subsided slightly as he raised his hand slightly to get their attention. Thank you, he said. I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for your support in the fight against the destroyer. You all made it much easier, even though my party did the majority of the work. Even more ferocious than before, their cheers returned, and Izuku raised his hand once more to let them know he wasn't finished. Having said that, after breaking almost every bone in my body, I would really like to just go home and relax. With the exception of Aqua, who didn't fully understand the memo, his party felt sorry for him and went along without protest. Thank you for your understanding, guys. Izuku-kun. Why are we heading out so quickly? If we return to the guild hall, we would most likely receive free food and beverages. Oh, will the mansion be the venue for our party? Izuku halted his motion and placed both of my hands on Aqua's shoulders. He did his best to speak in a friendly and level tone, but that might have made things worse. Aqua-chan. I will be as explicit as I can. I just spent the entire day comforting Kazuma about yesterday's possession. Dealing with yesterday's emotional roller coaster. A city-sized mechanical monster was headed to destroy my new home when I woke up to an alarm. In an attempt to stop it myself, I ran more than 100 kilometers in total and returned. The majority of the party retreated a few paces and began to perspire profusely halfway through Izuku's tirade, demonstrating the most irate they had ever seen him. I used up all of my mana twice, and then proceeded to break every bone in my body, at the same time, while lifting said city-sized machine into the distance. Let me be very clear once more. I'm heading home and will get into bed. I'll get a full 12 hours of sleep. Izuku left it at that, partly because he was too exhausted to think of a credible threat and partly because the silence made it more impactful. After all, it's not like anything could go wrong if he just took a good, long nap, isn't it? 12 hours later, exactly, Guild Hall. This shit occurs after a day of sleep. As darkness explained why Kazuma was missing, Izuku shouted at the top of his lungs. Apparently a group of royal knights showed up at the guild hall, searching for the person who authorized the teleportation of the Coronatite sphere, aka Izuku. Kazuma chose to take his place, was arrested right away, and was imprisoned at the local jailhouse. The threat of mass imprisonment intimidated the other adventurers who attempted to stop them, which only made Izuku more irate. He took a moment to collect himself before making his decision, and then he approached his group and gave them his orders. You're accompanying me, Aris-chan and Darkness-chan. I'm going to need assistance to get us out of this situation because it all smells like petty noble bullshit. Izuku, who was typically much more relaxed with the group, had to assert his authority as the group's de facto leader when things went south like this. In the best case scenario, the issue is dropped by the end of the day, he ordered. An hour later, town prison, halt, talk about your business. Izuku maintained a stern expression and spoke as authoritatively as he could manage, saying, I am Izuku Midoriya. These two are Arisville and Dustinus Ford Lalatina. A guard prevented the three from entering the building. "We're here to talk about our party member's arrest and detention. I want to talk to your superior right now." The guard didn't appear to know Izuku, but he tensed up and gave a crazed nod when Darkness' true name was brought up. Right away. My superior Senna-san is 2 doors to the right. Please come in." He was clearly afraid of upsetting us now, so he quickly informed the three that she is currently interrogating your companion. Izuku thought, the wonders of having political power in a medieval world, I suppose, as they hurried to the door and opened it without hesitation to reveal 2 royal officials in semi-modern looking uniforms, one sitting across from Kazuma and the other looking at the intruders with surprise and annoyance at their unexpected arrival. Kazuma was perspiring. "And who could the 3 of you be? I'll let you know that you are interfering with a possible treasonous adventurer's interrogation and trespassing on government property," she shouted at the 3 of them as Izuku became more and more irate. Izuku said in a level voice, "Quiet. It wasn't a suggestion, that was all that was required." Senna stopped talking at that precise moment, her lips being sealed shut by an unidentified force, and Izuku used the silence to obtain the investigation briefing to find out exactly what transpired. "You have the wrong man, to start with. The teleportation incident had nothing to do with Kazuma-kun over here. I was the one who gave the order." Izuku smiled kindly at Kazuma and explained, "He just took the blame for my sake, which I am thankful for. His loyalty would not be forgotten." Their faces were pale seconds after he said, "Furthermore, you people have taken my vassal, my partner, and my friend, without prior warning, and without consulting me. After all, taking from a noble was a serious offense, which is what initially led to Kazuma's arrest." Senna, the woman, had a large blush on her face for an unknown reason, but he would deal with that later. "This is what will take place. Kazuma-kun is going to be free. I'll be his replacement. I'll find out if someone bothers him while I'm here, and things will get ugly. Have I been understood?" They nod angrily, and Kazuma simply grabs Aris and Darkness as he leaves the room without even questioning his position. "I apologize for being brief with you too," Izuku said, sitting in the same chair Kazuma was using and addressing the woman directly. He apologized, but he was quite impolite to them and probably could have handled it more tactfully. "However, I had a long week, and hearing that my best friend was arrested for something I did has all but destroyed my patience." "I'm all right, my lord. Could you tell me who you might be?" It was fair enough. Izuku had only been a noble for a few weeks, and even then, it was only a minor title. "I don't know of any noble who matches your appearance." Izuku greets Senna with a warm nod and says, "My name is Izuku Midoriya. It's a pleasure to meet you, Senna-san. I only became a noble about 2 weeks ago, so it makes sense that you haven't heard of me yet. I recently acquired a sizable plot of land northeast of Axel." They nod, and the man begins writing on a new sheet of parchment. "My title is Baron. How are you aware that my name is Midoriya-sama? Having a noble know your name was a double-edged sword. Having a vengeful noble know your name was a death sentence." She asked me this question with interest and a hint of fear. I was informed by the entrance guard. A nobleman without a stick up his ass? That was unexpected, but not unpleasant. "And please, call me Izuku-san or simply Izuku, as I'm not one for formality in general." They relax a little at that. "Excellent, Izuku-san. I appreciate that. It makes things much simpler for us. Would you kindly respond to a few of our inquiries? They will assist us in ascertaining the reality of what transpired. Just so you know, this bell is magical." Senna pointed to the gadget and said, "It will ring whenever it detects a lie." Izuku's eyes brighten slightly and he launches into one of his famous tirades. "That is incredible. How would such a thing operate? Would it use speech patterns to identify lies? Or is it able to read the user's thoughts? However, what happens if someone genuinely thinks the lie they are telling is true? Would it still function?" Before realizing Sina's disbelieving gaze a little too late, he muttered, but Izuku stopped himself and inhaled deeply. "I apologize for that." He bowed in apology, and she quickly recovered and waved it off, saying that eccentric nobles were nothing new. "Back in my homeland, magic devices were rare, so analyzing and writing about them has become a new hobby of mine," he said. "Let's move on to the first query. What did you do before turning into an adventurer, and where are you from?" Good, a straightforward question to begin with. I hope they don't ask him to go into further detail. Naturally, Izuku would respond honestly, but he should probably watch how he phrased it. "I was born and raised in Musutafu, Japan. I was a student training to be a hero before coming here." The bell didn't ring as the man recorded what I had to say. Additionally, Kazuma-san claimed to be from Japan, though he did not name the city. "You claimed to be preparing to become a hero. What exactly is involved in doing that? Additionally, could you please tell us the location of Japan? These would be a little more challenging. Where I come from, the term hero has a particular connotation. It is a government job that is comparable to that of a city guard or knight. The job was a little more complicated than that, but the bell seems to have given him some leeway. We train ourselves in combat, legal knowledge, general studies, and various other subjects to prepare ourselves for becoming heroes, he said, summarizing the work. Regarding Japan's location, to tell the truth, I don't know where it is in relation to this nation. He wasn't lying when he said, Izuku had to die to get here, so all I know for sure is that it is very far away and that most people would not be able to reach it in their lifetime. Sina's eyes grew a little tired at his response, but she persisted, if this place is so hard to get to, how did you make your way here? There was more irate scrawling. Please realize that your wording gave the impression that you had outside assistance. Inhuman assistance. I need to be careful what I say because it could make or break everything. If the Demon King is what you mean. No, I am not related to him or his army, and I have no loyalty to them. I may have overdone it a bit. Great, now they must think I'm crazy. Once more, no ringing. Senna appeared to have a new fearful expression on her face. A divine being is in your favor. Which one? Actually, don't forget it. We apologize for being impolite by assuming the worst. She stood up and bowed fully, obviously embarrassed by what had transpired. Indeed, divine intervention was not unheard of in this place because religion was somewhat of a big deal. Calm down, Senna-san. Please, I was only really upset about what had happened with Kazuma-kun. You were simply carrying out your duties. Anyway, if it's okay with you, I'd like to talk to the governor who approved this investigation. It would be pointless to blame the enforcers when the legislator was the true culprit. Sure, they were a little rude, but the order came from higher up. While it's true that I didn't mean to hurt him or his property. The perks of being rich, I guess. They readily agreed to it, and Izuku didn't have to wait long because most higher-level nobles had archwizards on retainer for transportation. I still owe the man an apology for ordering the teleportation in the first place. So you're the petty explorer who had the audacity to demolish my manor. You brought me here, I suppose, to administer his punishment myself? Why is it always the blonde ones? Izuku asked himself as a morbidly obese, haughty blonde waddled in a short while later. In fact, Izuku-san has been exonerated of any involvement in treason. He has acknowledged, though, that he gave the order to teleport the Coronatite. As a result, the case has changed from criminal to civil. Lord Alderp has been brought in to make his demand for compensation because of this. Senna explained the situation to the man, who appeared irritated before turning back to Izuku. Intent has no purpose. He demolished his city lord's house. Izuku wasn't so constrained. As such, he should be killed for committing treason, intentional or not, the man said imperiously, and the two officers were unable to respond because of his status. So you intend to execute me simply because a freak accident destroyed your property? I had intended to apologize for that specific instance of misfortune. But after witnessing your attitude, I won't even bother. Izuku turned back to face Senna and the unnamed male employee. And he had a magical lie detector in the same room. Then he had an idea. These haughty nobles were almost always corrupt, right? Izuku grinned evilly and continued. We might as well make use of the resources available to us since we're here, right? Izuku pointed at the bell, making sure that only the two workers could see him doing so. Lord Alderp, was it? According to the report I was given, the blast totally destroyed your mansion. But how exactly was it that no one was killed? Well, at the time, I was in the cellar below ground, as well as the rest of my staff. The bell did not respond. His response was dubious in and of itself, but what could he and his whole staff be doing in the cellar simultaneously? Oh, and why did you all go down there simultaneously? And to accommodate so many people at once, how big and deep did this cellar need to be? It would have to be a sizable area, to put it mildly, larger than what would be required for even the biggest wine cellar, Izuku inquired. Ding! What was that noise? We were making wine for a party that was coming up. He lied, but for no apparent reason, and he asked without knowing what the bell was or did. It's time for a direct question. The key to the bell is to keep quiet because if Izuku startled him, he might reveal himself. Are you somehow associated with demons? After a brief pause, the plump noble turned purple and began screaming back at the top of his lungs. Obviously not, you ignominious, unimportant scumbag. Got him. I didn't expect it to be that bad. I expected corruption, maybe a little fraud and money laundering here and there, but outright demonic pacts? I may have just struck gold. Izuku smirked as he turned to face Senna, who who was taken aback by what the Green Baron had just accomplished. Aldrich realized what was happening and began to flee, but Izuku quickly caught up to him and put him in a hold. Maxwe Gu. Izuku closed his jaw before he could yell that name because he didn't want to allow the summoning of demons by calling upon their true names. An hour following a rigorous interrogation. Baron Izuku-sama. I sincerely appreciate you exposing the nefarious activities of those dishonest nobles on behalf of the kingdom of Belzerg. You should be paid appropriately because you have served this kingdom. Izuku understood that this was merely a formality, but Senna could have done this without making such a deep bow. It was a little awkward. For the purpose of receiving direct compensation from King Belzerg himself, kindly bring your party to the royal capital, along with any significant members who were accountable for the destroyer's defeat. Your stay in the capital will include fully paid room and board, as well as teleportation scrolls. She completed enumerating all of her official responsibilities. Izuku-kun, thank you for enduring that. It was already noon when we concluded their business, but Izuku simply nodded and said, I know you dislike formalities, but it was necessary for what you have accomplished. Senna gladly accepted Izuku's invitation to join the party for dinner, assuming they were both hungry after such a busy morning. She also wanted to thank Kazuma for protecting Izuku and apologize for any inconvenience caused, as she would be their guide while in the capital. Guild Hall a few minutes later. Izuku-kun, you've returned. The rest of the party followed suit, asking their leader what had happened after Aqua screamed and glomped Izuku as soon as he entered the building. Kazuma was glaring at Senna the entire time. In fact, a significant portion of the guild was ignoring her, at least until Izuku told them to calm down and did his best to explain what had happened. By the end of it, Senna was practically on her knees pleading with Kazuma to pardon her snap decisions. Kazuma, who was the introverted, socially awkward person who had a weakness for attractive women, accepted the apology, which appeared to appease the other guild members. Megaman and Yun Yun had no personal grudges against Senna, so they treated her well enough. Aris and Darkness needed some persuasion, but they eventually warmed up to her, understanding that she was only doing her job. Izuku then informed his party that Senna would be joining them for lunch and that she would be their guide while they were staying in the capital city. Aqua, bless her soul, accepted the news without protest and welcomed Senna into the group. So, Izuku-kun, is this girl merely a sample, or do I need to be concerned about another one? Together with Senna, who turned red at the comment, Aris made fun of her boyfriend. Please act, Aris-chan. Today has been enough for Senna-san. There was a time and place for things like that, Izuku warned Aris, adding, and I'm still having trouble figuring out what we are supposed to be, let alone what others would be like. You're a polygamist, then. I can't claim to be shocked. A nobleman and a hero of your caliber. She blushed and said, anyone would be lucky to be with you. Izuku could swear she glanced at Kazuma for a second before swiftly going back to her meal, but she decided to ignore it for her own sake. Darkness-chan. Who is the city's new owner now that the old lord is being detained? Izuku asked the noble lady who lived there, and although she blushed a little at the attention and the reminder of her aristocratic background, she responded. Well, my family had legal authority over the former Lord Aldrich. That lord must have been a hardship for her family as well, she said in a somewhat resentful tone, but his political power rivaled ours, probably because of that demon he contracted. Aldrich was the ruling noble in charge of tax collection, and although the land itself belonged to the Dustiness family, it was given to the kingdom as a token of loyalty. The royal family in the House of Dustiness will determine how the land is redistributed now that he is gone, she concluded. Senna then spoke to the entire group after Izuku said, that's something to think on later, but for now, I'm just too tired, I should really just rest for a bit more. Izuku thanked Darkness for his explanations before concluding his lunch. Is everyone ready to go to the capital? I was told to bring everyone who played a significant role in destroying the destroyer. I know your group put in the most effort, but is there anyone else? Yes, Wiz was never introduced to Senna. She might not want to go, but yes. In addition to being a fairly private individual who is easily intimidated, the capital may have anti-undead sentiments, not to mention how well protected the king must be. My party and I should get ready for the moment, but I'll ask her later. You are welcome to join us for dinner this evening. Luna-chan, you too. I called out to the most popular waitress in the group, and she gave me the thumbs up. The group then went home for a well-earned rest, which they would need in the days ahead. Izuku had no idea that his life would soon take on a new level of complexity.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, bye bye.